everyone. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
We're back. It's okay.
I didn't know.
Libby! Yeah, we missed you. Yeah, we missed you.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Also,
Wait, we
just
missed
a
you?
heads up. No, Sonic, they didn't hear all that stuff you were saying because I
Okay.
only unmuted myself. I waited until I knew that you were like, oh, okay. And then you stopped, and then I was like,
I
all right,
should-
I'm unmuting you guys. You're good. You're good.
Okay, next time I picked up on that, I'm just gonna keep going. I'm just gonna keep.
No!
I'm just gonna be like, whatever. I'm just gonna keep. I'll do a giant spiel and
No!
make you have to choose.
Oh, well, then I'll just keep you on mute for a while, and I'll just keep you on mute for a while, and I'll just talk to Libby. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just talk to Sheb the whole time, and he'll be like,
Okay,
yeah. But he'll
just
play
like-
double duty like a voice in his.
I mean, to be fair, that's only gonna work for about 30 seconds, and then I'm gonna click over to Discord and mute you, server mute you, and then and then, and then I'll start.
and then I'll
back
be in the
up.
chat.
Yeah.
Bitch, did you just fucking mute me?
Yeah. I'll be
And then
like,
you have to
fuck
block
yeah, I
me
did.
on the Twitch.
Oh no, I'm not gonna block you on Twitch. You just keep commenting in chat. That makes my day.
I won't be silenced.
Until I press this button, and then you will be silenced. Also,
And then
I
I'll
can
just have to be loud in chat, apparently.
Oh no, I can time you out. You're all good.
Yeah, it was just like, yeah, I'll actually, I think I'd have to get Moon. Like, Moon, I need you to
Mods-
give me Richie's phone number real quick.
Mods time Sonic out for 60 seconds.
No. Oh, you want me to time? I gotta time myself out then. Shit.
It'd be really funny to time out a mod. Oh man, that'd be so funny. Oh man. All right. So oh man, this is so weird. All right, so another piece of my wisdom tooth just I was messing with it with my tongue and it just came right off.
Well,
So,
Oh.
well,
Oh, wait,
my
okay. You
wisdom
said a
tooth is-
piece.
yes, my wisdom tooth one of my wisdom teeth has been slowly rotting away, and it just made things worse. So,
Mm. Okay. Well, okay. Did you?
well, it
you,
made
okay,
things
you did have a
worse for when
surgery,
they have
though.
to extract my wisdom tooth. Yeah,
Ooh, yeah. That's
yeah.
right. I keep forgetting you have not had the surgery yet. I
I
keep
have
thinking
not.
you have.
I have no. Fenris had it. He had it last week.
mm,
Oh.
One of
I
my
didn't know
wisdom
he was
teeth
gonna-
is just gonna be one of my wisdom teeth is just gonna be straight easy. They just yank that bitch. The other one they're gonna have to go in and like cut around to get because
I'm assuming the one that just chipped away might be the slightly easier one there, right? Or no, that would be worse.
that'd be the harder one. Yeah. You really should get it soon. My friend's dad died that way. Oh no, that's bad.
ooh,
Yeah, because I think Richie, if I remember, you were the one who said like you gotta take care of your teeth because that shit leads directly to your heart.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Mhm.
The problem
I
is
believe I remember
can't
that from you.
I cannot afford that right now. That's the problem. I don't have the money. It got infected and into his bloodstream. Ah, damn it. Yeah.
ooh.
Also, that could be partially why I'm having so much sinus issues. Because that does affect the nasal passages and stuff. So I do need
Yeah.
to get that fixed. Yeah.
Hopefully
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just whenever I do, that's going to be a week I can't do stuff on stream. Perhaps a week, maybe just a
Ooh.
few days. Well, Fenris was good in like a couple of days, but he just got him yanked, as far as I understand it.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of they had to open it up and get it. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of having to go in and like do proper surgery to go in and get it, which one of my teeth will have to be that way. The other, not so much. But
Mm.
yeah, I definitely want them gone. There's a couple of teeth that I may just have to get removed. A replacement for them.
Like on top of that, or just
Yeah, well, one of my teeth
Oh.
in between. All right, there's a molar. One of my back molars
Mm-hmm.
right next to my wisdom teeth has just rotted away. Like it is just
Hmm.
slowly chipped away.
Gotcha.
I mean, also just for the bad breath that I'm having to constantly fight because of this rotting teeth stuff, I want it gone just so I can like wake up and not feel like I just inhaled a bag of garbage, you know?
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, getting that done is not cheap. I hear it's like $70 a tooth, and
Oof.
I can't afford that. And unfortunately, it's like every time I'm ready to be like, all right, I need to get this done, something else pops up, and I have to raise money for something else. Like I was supposed to get my AC in my car fixed is going to cost me like $160 for for the um, for the labor, because you have to like pop open part of the engine because of how it's basically set up. You have to get in there in order to get to the place. I mean, replacing it is like a 5-minute job. It's just getting all the shit out of the way so that you can get to it and putting it all back.
Oh, okay.
That is the problem. And I may just ask him to replace the 3 back starter plugs while I'm there, while he's got that all open. Just pop them in, pop them out, replace them, be done. May just be that way. Who knows? But yeah, that's gotta happen. I got a bike today, a bicycle. My brother's roommate doesn't use his bicycle anymore, so he just gave it to me. So I had to test that out. We had to put air back in the tires, and my brother put some WD-40 on the chain to make sure that, you know, the chain didn't break or anything. But I think he put a little too much on it because the chain kept sliding off of certain gears and then like sliding off gears entirely. So I'm gonna just let the WD-40 just kind of sit there and do its thing, and I'll bring the bike in like later tonight and just yeah, because it's still sitting in my car right now. But I did ride it for a little bit. I just realized it's been a minute since I've ridden a bicycle and not like some gym cycle or something like that. So yeah, getting healthy. Hopefully that way. But yeah, because I'm the heaviest I've ever been. I'm at 230, and I sit around most of the day and do stuff, and I need to get out and get active and exercise. And the first way to do that is one, having an exercise buddy, and two, making sure I have enough gas in my car to go from point A to point B. Which I might hit up my sister-in-law to help me with that, because that's what happened last time. I mean, I've got like a little under half a tank, so I should still be good. But like for the next 2 days, I got to pick up my niece, take her to school, and pick up my brother and take him to work. And it's a thing. It's a thing we're all working on, you know. But enough of my woes. How was your weekend? How did everybody's Mother's Day go?
Good.
Yeah,
It was good.
Oh, just a heads up.
Pretty
no,
good.
we are not going to be switching out the Subnautica stuff to this weekend. I canceled it for yesterday because it was Mother's Day, and I was like, yeah, no, dude, holiday stuff. Just like there's not going to be a Fan Friday on the 4th of July or a Fun Friday on the 4th of July. There's no reason for that. Dude,
Yeah,
I
they're
should
not going
probably
anywhere.
I should probably do some streams on my own to try and raise money for either my teeth or my car repairs. Car repairs are a higher priority at the moment. I know somebody's like, but your teeth. Well, problem is, at the end of next month, I have a convention that I am attending and doing stuff at. And the thing is,
Or urgent priority.
And the thing is, I've got people that I'm having to ferry from like my place to the convention or from airport to the convention, all that stuff. And I want to make sure that my AC is properly working, unlike last year when we had to just roll the windows down and it was just a mess.
Ooh.
Everyone was just dead.
I would like to get my car in full working order, but like it's not cheap to do that, you know?
Yeah.
Also, if I have to drive down to Atlanta and pick up 2 people, that I would be not. I think they'd like it more if I had AC in my car.
Yeah, probably. It's gonna be a little toasty.
Yeah,
could be.
AC is very important.
I am talking about him, so I hope he responds eventually.
Yeah, I'm here.
He hears you're talking shit. He's like, "What the fuck you say?"
I was not talking shit.
No,
I said
no,
if I have to go down
like...
and if I have to go down and pick up 2 people from the Atlanta area, you know, and I'm being as vague as I can. I'm just saying Atlanta, like there's only 2 people that live in Atlanta or something. No, dude, fucking. But like, if I had to go down to that area, I'm sure they would greatly appreciate it. If I had air conditioning on the trip back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Though, Moon, I'm pretty sure you'd appreciate it more that I had like Volume 7 audiobook of T-Bait that I could play for you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you do that on the ride? That's smart.
Dude, if I have long road trips, I have audiobooks specifically for that reason.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
It's
no,
good.
that's smart. Like if not podcast stuff or whatever, yeah, definitely.
I did talk to my brother.
good
He is
chunk up a-
saying that
you'd have a
he
good
is going
chunk
to
of time.
remove like an adult or two from the list, so that because there's no reason for them to be there anymore. So should be able to share my stuff with you soon.
Cool.
Yeah. Also started going back into volume 11 again and continuing on from where I was, and it made me realize once again, especially after going through and reading a lot of the comic stuff on Tapas, it just kept reminding me, and you're familiar with this because you've gone through enough of the book. Inscribed on Arthur's tombstone, it should be the phrase "too late to matter." Because a lot of the time he shows up at like way too late, and it's like, dude. Podcasts and audiobooks are lifesaver for long road trips. Absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, so that's what's up in my life. What are you guys doing, Fat Dog wise? Oh, I should probably announce. We're doing another solo leveling fundraiser this Friday to try and raise the rest of the money. Thank you to everybody who has donated. We have $280 out of the 500 we need to raise, so we're over halfway there. Just 220 away. Really do appreciate that. Yeah, that's where we're at right now. So what is the other Fat Dog stuff going on right now?
My video editor, I just checked in with him today. He is
Uh-huh.
finally at the point where he can really start putting time into Data Bridge 2.
Gotcha.
So look forward to that. Starting to get some progress done.
Solo
I mean, he has other
Bridge.
stuff he does in the
quick update on
Yes,
KaiCon
fine.
stuff. Moon, we have officially combined the Konosuba and solo leveling panels together and just doing kind of one abridged show and tell kind of thing. Just so we could actually have them, because all right, I submitted 9 panels for a KaiCon and they're like, we could take 4, and I'm like, well, I have 2 that are 2 hours long. That is the voiceover and anime church, and we don't want to get rid of either of those because those are fun and popular.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you put voiceover in a panel, people will show up. But yeah, then anime church is just a good fun time of us talking about the nerdy news, and we had a lot of fun doing that live. And I was gonna say, if we didn't get to do that one live at the convention, I was gonna be like, all right, cool, we'll just do it here all together, because why not? Oh man. But yeah, and the dubbing after dark thing, I kept that in because that's gonna be fun. It's kind of like reading comics, but they're like adult comics, and we could be really silly with it and have fun. Yeah, really stupid 18 plus content. It's like, oh yeah. I should punch it up and make it more to date. So something about like we should make a reference to like, if you want more of this kind, if you want to see the visual content, make sure to go over to our fans link, or some silly shit like that. It's great. Fansly. Anyway, solo leveling is in the video editing process. It's just gonna make everything a lot easier if we are able to animate the animate the freaking system screens. Yeah. But yeah, there we go. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Moon and I are working on I gotta pick a day for a day and a specific time where we know, hey, we need to meet up and work on scripting at this particular point in time at this particular date. We should probably work that out, so we're working on it weekly. But also,
you could actually.
Yeah,
you could just do that on the road trip there to KaiCon. Like, all right, one of you gets the script out, just starts writing down stuff, and you two just talk.
My dude.
Yeah,
That's not gonna happen.
Not gonna happen.
I
Yeah.
doubt it, but how funny would that be? It's like we actually scripted some of this episode on the way to the con.
My dude, we don't physically script things. It's all digital, so yeah, it's not like we can jump on.
Well, I
Google
know, but
Drive
like it would
from
just
the
be for that
car.
one time. Like you'd script a little bit of it, do one session or whatever.
Scripting on Google Drive from the car.
No.
Ooh.
So you would have a physical piece of paper for that.
No. You,
No.
no. Do you know how much a car actually vibrates when it's going 70, 80 miles an hour? That's not possible, my guy. That is so yeah, just from a physics standpoint. No. Also through trying to write in a pen or pencil going through the page kind of standpoint. No. Oh my goodness. I think we're just gonna stick with listening to audiobooks.
Yeah.
That's the safe way to do it. Also, you wanna write a script while I'm driving. You wanna add an extra distraction on the road for somebody with ADHD. Come on.
Sounds like a bad time.
Yeah, I'm not trying to kill everyone in the car
Yeah, that
this
sounds like
time.
a very, very bad time. Well, so what you're saying? We go like, I missed my computer tails, and I just bail out of the car immediately.
Miss your computer tails.
Yeah. If you say that in the car, everyone just bails out of the car
I'm just
immediately.
I'm just like, all right, man, I'm going to bed. All right, yeah, I
No,
don't
just
need to give
fucking
them any more
screams.
reason to fear my driving. You know,
Mm,
just let's just keep it safe, Bucko.
yeah.
Champ, pal, kiddo.
You know,
All the insulting words. All right, any last minute stuff that we want to address before we just hand the entire stream over to Shem?
I don't think so.
I love how you're the first one that's like, it's like, why are you handing me the entire stream? This is too much pressure.
I mean, I don't have any of the equipment, but I will carry it as much as I can.
Ah, good. You've got broad shoulders. I
try.
can trust you. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Big
So
back.
I got into a new web comic. I know, surprise. So it's called How to Hide the Emperor's Child, and it's
Mhm.
another one of those tapas series. And
Oh, okay.
apparently, this one's actually finished, so I get to finish the main story in one
Oh,
go, and I'm really happy for that.
cool.
Yeah,
At least you have the benefit of not having to wait forever.
right. All right. That being said, Shem, take
Yes.
it away.
Okay.
Last time, we left off at something
The
in
school
Mushoku
again.
Tensei Z.
Yeah. I mean, he does have a pretty good scrim, so he could
He
probably
does.
carry a screen for a while.
He does.
Yep.
All right.
Once homeroom was over, Zenoba and the others went off to their classes. It was only natural for someone as serious as Cliff to attend classes in earnest, but Linnea and Persenna, who seemed more the type to play hooky, were doing so as well. According to Zenoba, the lunch break was about 2 hours from now. He beamed as he invited me to eat with him, and I was happy to oblige. Eventually, I'd take classes myself. I hadn't come to this school just to study, but I hadn't come here to just bum around either. I decided to check out the school's facilities in the meantime. First up was the school infirmary. The one at this school was spacious, with 8 beds and 2 healers, which probably meant there were a lot of magical accidents where people got injured. At that very moment, a man twice my height was being carried in on a stretcher. He was clutching his arm, and one of his legs was bent at an odd angle. One of the healers took hold of an injured area and began a hastened chant of intermediate tier healing magic, and the anguish on the man's face quickly faded. I didn't want to get in the way, so I left, spotting the plaque at the entrance, which said Medical Office 1 on my way out. The next place I headed to was the gym storehouse, a room adjacent to the practice area where I'd taken my exam the other day. The entrance was locked, of course. I had some options: go to the teacher's buildings to get the key, or ask the gym teacher if I could borrow theirs. Then there was the option to pop it open with voiceless casting. That was what I chose, using my earth magic to remove the lock so I could enter. The inside smelled slightly moldy and dusty. The shelves were lined with leather breastplates and masks that looked like kendo masks, and in the corner was what looked like an umbrella bin stuffed with magic staves. There was an iron scarecrow with some unidentifiable white powder sitting in a jar. Apparently, classes here don't involve or didn't involve high jumps or floor gymnastics, so there were no mats. In fact, the name of the room wasn't even gym storehouse; it was practice equipment. I thought about heading to the roof next, but this was a region that got a lot of snowfall, so many of the school buildings had sloping roofs. They did have one rear rooftop room, but I decided to forego that for the moment and head for the library next. The library at the school was set off from the main or from the other building, so I had to leave the main campus to get there. After about 10 minutes of walking, I made it to the two-story building and was stopped at the entrance by the gatekeeper. Halt! Eh? I've not seen you before. Are you new here? Why aren't you in class? Uh, yes, I'm a new student. A special student with an exemption from classes. Show me your student ID. My movements were stiff as I passed him the student ID I'd received, or as I passed him the student ID I'd received just the other day. The gatekeeper stared hard at my face as he confirmed my identity and said, "Okay." He carefully patted me down and then gave me an overview of what to be careful of when using the library. Usage of magic was forbidden in the library. In general, taking books out of the library was strictly prohibited, but there was a certain section you could borrow from. For the latter, you needed the permission of a librarian and were required to have your name recorded. And of course, you'd be penalized for any books you destroyed or defiled. Same rules as your average library, but really tearing up a book could result in a fine and possible expulsion, even though most of the books in the library were just copies. Still appropriate, I suppose, given how precious books were in this world. It's quite strict here, isn't it? I said. Some lowlife secretly switched out some of the books before and sold the originals on the market, if you can believe it. Uh, I see. I bowed to the gatekeeper and headed inside, where the subtle scent of books awaited. It was a unique blend of aromas, the smell of mold, of ink, and of paper. A bathroom sat at the entrance, convenient for those who felt the need hit them the moment they stepped in the library. I offered a light greeting to the librarian before heading in. There were desks and tables lined up by the entrance, and further in were rows of tall bookcases. Whoa. Astonished, I unintentionally let out a gasp. I'd read a lot since coming to this world, but this was the first time I'd ever seen such a vast number of books in one place. Stairs led through an opening in the ceiling to the second floor, which was, as expected, similarly occupied by bookcases. Desks and chairs scattered around suggested quite a few people made it their habit to study here. I remembered the man god's advice. Rudius, go forth and enroll at the Renoa University of Magic. There, you must investigate the displacement incident in the Fitor region. If you do this, you will be able to regain your abilities and confidence as a man. Phew, I'd almost completely forgotten about that first bit, but this was perfect. With the sheer volume of books here, I was bound to find something about teleportation. However, where should I even begin? Maybe I should ask the librarian? No, there was no rush. Not even the Asura Kingdom had figured out what had caused the displacement incident yet. If I could have figured it out that quickly, the man god wouldn't have told me to enroll in the university. He would have told me to sneak in and investigate instead. In fact, he'd only told me to look into the incident, not to discover its cause. Maybe something was supposed to happen while I was searching. For the moment, I settled on figuring out the shelving system. The majority of the books were written in the human tongue, but among them were those written in demon god tongue and beast god tongue. There was also a book in fighting god tongue. The alphabets I weren't familiar with must have been the sky god tongue or perhaps sea god tongue. I wish they would translate those tomes into languages I could read. Ah! There was a small sudden cry from behind me. I turned around and saw a young boy with white hair and sunglasses carrying a number of tomes and scrolls and looking my way. It's Fitz, I realized. I hurriedly straightened up and pressed my feet together and bowed. I apologize for the other day. It was my shallow actions that caused you to lose face. I planned to bring you a box of sweets, but unfortunately, as a new student, I've been busy with so many things. Uh, no, it's fine. Please don't bow. There was a guy in my previous life whom I really respected, named Masa, a working man who could ride out whatever life threw at him by prostrating himself on his hands and knees. One of his edicts was, whenever you've made a mess of something, find an innocuous place like the bathroom to give an earnest apology so you don't get yelled at a more public location. My sudden apology made Fitz panic, and it seemed we were headed in a direction where he was likely to forgive me. Success. Rudy, I mean, Rudius, was it? What are you doing here? Just a bit of research. Into what? Fitz pressed. The displacement incident. When I said that, his brows knitted together. Had I said something odd? The displacement incident? Why? He asked. I lived in Asura Kingdom's Vitar region, and I was teleported to the Demon Continent after the incident. The Demon Continent? Fitz said. I thought his surprise was a little overexaggerated. Yes, it took 3 years for me to return home. My family has all been found since, but there's still one acquaintance of mine that's missing. It seemed like a good opportunity to do a little research. Is that why you came to the school? That's right. I couldn't tell him the real reason was finding a cure for my erectile dysfunction. Besides, I wasn't lying. I wanted to know why the displacement incident had occurred. I see. You really are amazing after all, he said, scratching at the back of his ear. I wasn't sure what was so amazing after all, since I hadn't discovered anything yet. Perhaps he'd recognize my power after our mock battle the other day. Well, whatever. And, what might I ask are you doing here? I asked. Oh, yeah, I'm carrying some documents with me. I have to go now. I'll see you again, Rudius. Yeah, sure. See ya. Fitz Hurley turned away, heading towards the front of the library. However, after just a few steps, he suddenly looked back. Oh, right. You should read a book by Animus that's about teleportation called An Exploratory Account of the Teleportation Labyrinth. It's creative nonfiction, but easy to read. And then he ran off. He didn't seem to be holding a grudge about the exam. Maybe he was actually a pretty good guy. I went to the librarian to ask after the book ask after the book An Exploratory Account of the Teleportation Labyrinth and read it until lunchtime. It was a slim volume, not even 100 pages thick, and told the tale about Animus Macedonius, an adventurer native to the northern regions who went exploring a labyrinth. This labyrinth, appropriately called the Teleportation Labyrinth, was a rare kind whose traps were all teleportation themed. There were 5 types of beasts who dwelled within, all highly intelligent creatures who understood the layout of the labyrinth and where the teleportation traps would send a person. If you were unlucky enough to step on a trap, you'd find monsters waiting for you on the other end. It was difficult to avoid these traps during combat, and if the battle turned chaotic, your party would be immediately separated, so this labyrinth was classified as being incredibly dangerous. As Animus and his companions dove into the labyrinth, he studied the teleportation traps he found there. There were mainly 3 types of traps. The first was a fixed one-way teleporter. It would send people to the same location every time, but there was no way to return from there. Another was a fixed 2-way teleporter. There would be a magic circle at the destination, and you could use it to come back. Finally, there was the random teleporter, which teleported you to a random destination. The basic strategy adventurers employed in the teleportation labyrinth was to use the magic circles to repeatedly teleport themselves deeper in, but random teleportation circles are mixed in with the others. If you mistakenly stepped on one of those, you would be separated from your own party and forced to fight a swarm of beasts by yourself. Animus's book contained his research and theories about how to tell the random teleporters from others. In the middle of his journey, he figured out how to tell them apart, and rapidly progressed deeper into the labyrinth. But he got carried away, forgetting that his method wasn't foolproof. At the end of the story, he misidentified a trap and stepped on a random teleporter. Surrounded by a vast number of enemies, he lost one arm but managed to somehow escape alive. However, he lost all 3 of his comrades in the process. Animus himself could no longer fight, so he abandoned his life as an adventurer. The story ended with a line saying he'd leave conquering that labyrinth to the reader. I couldn't tell whether this was fiction or nonfiction, but having your party scattered and preyed upon by monsters like that sounded pretty scary. Unlike the RPG dungeons in my previous life, which were built with the intention of being solvable, it was perfectly possible to never make it all the way through this world's labyrinths. Based on what I'd heard from other adventurers, labyrinths were generally laid out in a way that allowed you to reach the middle where the magic crystal was located, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was at least one trick labyrinth out there without a real endpoint. The back of the book was filled with theories about random teleportation. The nomenclature wasn't entirely accurate since the teleport range of the random traps was predetermined to a degree. Also, while you could teleport into the middle of a cave, it was exceedingly rare to be teleported into the earth itself. Animus hypothesized that this was due to resistance between the mana at the destination and the mana of the person being teleported, which was the same principle that explained why you couldn't cast an offensive spell right into a person's body. This was something I already knew, although healing magic did involve running magic through another person's body. I suspected it was connected to why I couldn't cast healing magic without incantation, but we'd leave that for another time. As for teleportation, I wonder if there was an exception to the theory. After all, you could channel offensive magic into the dirt. Perhaps teleporting people into solid matter simply required an obscene amount of magical power. As I ruminated, the noon bell rang. Time was a fleeting thing. I met Zenoba and we headed for the cafeteria, which was a separate building. It had 3 floors, each for different kinds of students. The third floor was for human royalty and nobility. The second floor was for human commoners and beast folk. The first floor was for adventurers and demon folk. It was more of a method of classification than one of discrimination. The school had probably reasoned that if the human nobility ate alongside the adventurers and demon folk, it would only fan the fires of potential conflict. As an adventurer myself, I was fine with dining on the first floor, but come this way, or come this way. I got the meal set that Zenoba recommended and let him drag me to the third floor. The moment I emerged from the stairs, all gazes on the upper floor immediately turned towards me. Possibly because I exuded the stench of a commoner, but also my clothes had seen better days. Because of the cold, I had my old gray robe over my uniform. It was 5 years old, and its sleeves were tattered, its front marred by a large seam across the chest. With my recent growth, my clothes were also a size too small. To put it frankly, I looked completely disheveled. Unlike on the first and second floors, not a single person wore a robe to protect themselves in the cold. It was full of people in cozy looking cloaks and cardigans. They might as well have been wearing suits, while I was the only one in sweats. Zenoba, I don't think I fit in here. Can we at least eat on the second floor? I pleaded. No, not the second floor. Linnea and Persenna are there. Okay, then how about the first floor? The first floor is full of heathens who don't know about any table manners. It's not a place fit for royalty like me to go to, no matter how briefly. Uh, okay, then let's just eat separately, I said finally. Don't be heartless. Do you know how much I've suffered not being able to see you again until now, master? You can at least eat a meal with me. Don't ask your master to suffer in your stead. We were arguing at the head of the staircase, and despite its width, the students passing by made it seem like we were blocking them. Suddenly, a burst of noise came from below, a chorus of shrill voices gradually getting closer. Ah, Lord Luke! Lord Luke, I'm next! Ah, no way, Lord Luke, not fair! Lord Luke, can I come in on your next date? A handsome man, surrounded by women, was coming up the stairs. No, I'm sorry, he said. I already decided I can only take 2 girls on a date at one time. I only have 2 arms, you know, so if I invited 3 girls, one would be left out, right? Ah, that sucks. I'm sorry, or sorry, but I'm a popular man, you know. Let's go on a date some other time. I think my left arm is free next month. Those unbelievable words spilled from the mouth of the young man who resembled Paul. On either side of him was a girl whose uniform bulged in the chest area. His arms were wrapped around their waist as he climbed the stairs, laughing carelessly. I was pretty sure he was the guy I'd seen at the opening ceremony, Luke or whatever. What was his last name? Skywalker? Our eyes met. It's you. His eyes narrowed. The carefully look on his face turned grim. You're Fitz's. I bowed my head, so he knew about my match against Fitz. Fitz didn't seem angered by what happened. Perhaps his companions were pissed on his behalf. A pleasure to meet you. I'm Rudius Greyrat. I'll be under your guidance during my time here at the school. Since you're an upperclassman, I hope you'll look out for me. Yeah, I know. I heard about you from Fitz. Apparently, you're insanely forgetful. Luke looked at me, disgruntled. Insanely forgetful? Was I really? I didn't really get it. What did he think I'd forgotten? You know my name already, don't you? Oh, sorry. You know my name already, don't you? Uh, no, I don't. I shook my head as I suddenly asked a question reminiscent of a certain Fisk King's younger brother, figuring it was better to honestly confess my lack of knowledge than give a half-baked answer. So you've chosen to pay it no heed. That makes sense. Sorry, if it's no trouble, would you mind telling me your name then? Still disgruntled, Luke stared at me for a few beats before huffing and spat it out. Luke Notos Greyrat. Then he shoved past me. Ugh, what the heck was that about? I can't believe it. Seriously, that robe was so lame. It was totally worn out the edges. It's falling apart. You should just go out and buy a new one. His groupies followed in his wake, spewing insults, but their words went unheard by me. Luke Notos Greyrat. My father's birth name was Paul Notos Greyrat. Was Luke an illegitimate child? No, that couldn't be. Paul had long ago disavowed the name Notos. Luke had to be the cousin or something. Master, you've caught the eye of an unpleasant character. I guess I have, huh? If that exchange was anything to go by. That was Luke, one of the Asura Kingdom's upper nobility. He's technically a student, but he's one of Princess Ariel's guards. Regardless, let's forget about eating here, I said. I suppose we have no choice. We compromised by eating outside. The weather was nice, and I used my earth magic to conjure some chairs and a table, creating an insta-cafe terrace. Zenova expressed his awe at each spell I cast by shouting, Whoa! It delighted me to see how deeply moved he was. As we ate, Zenova told me about Princess Ariel and her group. Ariel Enemoa Asura, age 17, second princess of the Asura Kingdom, the only daughter of the crowned queen, and still third in line for the throne despite her relative youth. The queen's health had taken a downturn after giving birth to Ariel went poorly, leaving her unable to conceive another child. Also vying for the throne were first Prince Gabriel or Grabble and second Prince Halfast. The powerful people of the Asura Kingdom formed factions behind them, hoping to back the prince who had become king, then reap the benefits. However, with the size of each group, not all were certain to get a taste of the honey that trickled down. Even the ministers were ranked in a hierarchy, so it was a given that those at the bottom would be ignored. When the second princess was born, those who felt they wouldn't benefit from the candidate's succession switched their loyalties to her. However, hers was the weakest of the factions, and during the chaos of the displacement incident, some of the group's most powerful members lost their standing. Multiple attempts were made on the second prince's life, and under the pretense of studying abroad, she escaped to the school. The princess brought 2 guards with her. One of them was Fitz, Silent Fitz, he was nicknamed, a magician who used voiceless casting and killed an assassin targeting the princess. People knew he was an elf, but it was a complete mystery where he was born and raised. Only a handful of people could teach voiceless casting, but his master was unknown. Excuse me. Ariel and her group were tight-lipped about Fitz's existence. Rumors abound by that the Asura royal palace had raised Fitz in secrecy as part of an organization of heartless killing machines, which definitely wasn't true, judging by my conversations with him. Her other guard was Luke Notos Greyrat, the second son of the current head of the Notos family, Paimon Notos Greyrat. Since birth, he'd been trained to become one of Princess Ariel's guardian knights and continued in that role in the event that the princess managed to regain power and return to the struggle for succession. From the moment he enrolled in the school, he'd been continuously bathed in the limelight, making him a target of envy, fear, and respect. In closing, Zenoba said, "But he forewarned, some of this information is my own conjecture. Or, sorry, but be forewarned, some of this information is my own conjecture." Yeah, thanks. Actually, you're really knowledgeable. Because I was forced to look into the matter. By whom? I asked. Two foolish beast folk. Linnea and Persenna, huh? Indeed. His face was a very picture of anguish. They had made him their errand boy. Or they made them their errand boy? Zenoba, are you being bullied by those two? But bullied? No, I've merely conceded defeat after losing to them. That's all. Conceded defeat, huh? Zenoba looked slightly conflicted as he spoke, or even as he spoke flatly. If he was fine with his circumstances, that was one thing, but the effects of bullying were often easily overlooked by others. I wanted to help him, but I didn't know the extent of my would-be opponent's power. Beast folk were often quick to jump to conclusions. I didn't want to make enemies of them. Of course, there are plenty of good beast folk like Elaine. At the end of the day, though, I was always on the side of those being bullied. If they're doing something to you that you don't like, please tell me. I might not have much power, but I'll help. It's nothing for me to bother you with, Master. Rest assured. More importantly, let's talk about figurines, he said with a laugh. Guess I'll just monitor the situation a bit longer, I thought. I returned to my wandering after lunch. I couldn't think of other places I wanted to have a look at, so after a cursory glance around, I headed back to the library. I searched for literature on teleportation, but I'd never used a library before. It took me a while just to look through the stacks of books. The library let me peruse a catalog of their collection, from which I singled out books with the word teleportation in their titles. After that, I hunted them down through the sea of shelves. That alone took several hours. On top of that, most of what I did collect was either not detailed enough, written in technical jargon, written in a language I didn't even know, or required prior knowledge about the subject matter to make sense of it. If I'm going to hunker down and research this, I'd like to have a notebook. There was a limit to what I could hold in my memory. I decided to leave the books for tomorrow and left the library. Outside, the sun was setting, and students who'd finished classes were gradually making their way back to the dorm. Some seemed to be headed for the library. I went in the opposite direction to the school store, which was by the entrance to the main school building. The school was full of students shopping quietly. A cursory glance around revealed magic textbooks, magic crystals, robes, wooden swords, beginner wands, bags, shoes, and soap, among other daily essentials. There were also food items like dried meat, smoked meat, as well as bottles of drinking water and alcohol. I bought a random selection of paper, pen, ink, and some string to tie the paper with. Couldn't be attending school without even the most basic supplies. By the time I left, it had grown dark outside. There were no streetlights here, but the path was still faintly lit, so I continued down it. Even though winter was already over, there was still snow on the walkways. I trod carefully and hurried toward the dorm. No one else was around. I could hear a distant rustle and bustle, but it felt like I'd wandered into an empty space devoid of people. The path from the main school buildings cut in front of the women's dormitory and continued forward. I head unthinkingly down that path. That was when it happened. Hmm? Something descended from above. It was white, but it wasn't snow. Instinctively, I grabbed hold of it. Oh. What opened up before me was pure white fabric. It had embellishments on it, but they were subtle and elegant. The proper name for this particular item was panties, and fairly high quality ones at that. At the very least, they looked more expensive than the one Alina Elise normally wore. Perhaps someone was trying to hang them out to dry? I looked up and saw someone peeking over the edge of one of the verandas. Probably the person who dropped them. I thought our eyes met, but it was dark, so I couldn't discern their face. It felt like I'd seen them somewhere before. You dropped. Ah! Panty thief! Huh? The scream of a female student came not from above, but from behind me. Panicked, I turned around to find the screaming person pointing their finger at me. "Oh, this is a misunderstanding." It was already too late. Moments after the scream, the windows on the other veranda swung noisily open. Then figures came leaping out from the first door, one after the other. Before I realized what was happening, I'd been surrounded. The panties still in my hand. I had no idea, or the panties still in my hand. I had no idea what was going on. Uh, um, Hmm. Standing at the forefront was a well-muscled girl, or maybe a woman, or a bandit, or a gorilla. Her shoulders were almost twice as wide as mine. Was she beast folk, or no, a demon? Perverted scum! She spat on the ground as I stood there, confused by the sudden verbal abuse. The gorilla was considered the sage of the forest, but it was hard to think of her that way. What the hell? Why was I being called a panty thief? Sure, I was a 15-year-old boy with a healthy interest in women's underwear, but I hadn't stolen these or even tried to sniff them. I just caught them as they fell and tried to give them back to the person who dropped them. Hold on, I said. Please wait, I haven't done anything. You haven't done anything. The gorilla grabbed my arm. Then why don't you tell me what's in your hand? Well, yes, I was holding the panties in my hand, judging by the look on her face. She considered that proof enough. I could feel everyone's hostile gazes on me, and my legs began to tremble. Aren't those Princess Ariel's? I don't care how much you might admire her. It's a brazen act to do something like this at this hour. You should be ashamed. The other girls chimed in at the gorilla's biting words, saying, That's right, and you pervert, and drop dead. Even enough was enough. I already felt like crying. Now come with me. We'll make you regret this so much you'll never do it again. She hauled me away by the arm. I attempted to resist her, but all I did was leave skid marks from my shoes. I thought I'd toned my body quite a bit, but her strength was on a whole nother level. I mean, her arms were 2 to 3 times meatier than mine. At this rate, I was going to be dragged inside for an unspeakably horrific beating, and all because of a false accusation. Should I run, even though I hadn't done anything wrong? But running would be like proclaiming my guilt. Was this like when a man got falsely accused of feeling a girl up on the train? Would they hear me out if I tried to talk to them? It seemed like they'd already made up their minds that I was guilty. No, I had to stand my ground. I hadn't done anything wrong. I used earth magic to anchor my feet in place. The gorilla looked back in surprise and sneered. Oh, what's this? You plan on resisting? How gutsy for a panty thief. You really think you could fight this many people? A good question. I surveyed them and felt good about my chances. I fought off much worse in my time as an adventurer. I could take these girls. Still, fighting back would be as good as confirming my guilt. I might be falsely accused, but if I kicked up a fuss, I might get violence against women added to the charges against me. And this one would be true, too. It might even get me expelled. Wait, don't do anything! Or don't do anything to him, a boy's voice, slightly high pitched, rang out. Lord Fitz! What? Lord Fitz? Such a beautiful voice. What's he doing here? The crowd split, revealing a petite boy with white hair and sunglasses. Fitz. He cut between me and the buff woman to explain the situation. Sorry, that's the underwear I was trying to hang out to dry, but dropped. He picked them up for me. His shoulders trembled as he tried to catch his breath. Fitz, sir, I realize that you're in charge of washing the Princess Ariel's underwear, but, the gorilla continued, despite the late hour, he was still walking in front of the dorm, even though it's been agreed that once the sun sets, this path is only to be used by women. Really? I didn't see a sign for saying so. Fitz looked at my confused face and shook his head. He's new here, and a special student on top of that, so he rooms alone and doesn't have a roommate. He must not have known about the more intricate rules of the university. I'd like you to let this one pass. He sounded frantic, even when I could hear the panic in his voice. Wasn't sure why, but I was grateful. The gorilla turned in my direction. Is that true? Her expression seemed to ask. I bobbed my head up and down. She kept a firm grip on me as she studied Fitz's face. It's surprising that you'd go this far to defend someone. What you say must be true. Still, the fact remains that this boy violated the dorm rules. We'll make an example out of him by punishing what? As she spoke, she tried to pull me along, then froze. Fitz had whipped out his wand and thrust the tip of it right into the gorilla's face. Didn't I just say he did nothing wrong? Enough. Now let go of his hand. Fitz, sir? The hint of anger in his voice that stirred murmurs around us. Even in the darkness, I could see the gorilla's face blanching. Or would you all like to be sent to the medical office? His voice might be high pitched, but there was something murderous intent. But there was definitely murderous intent behind his words. I could hear the girls gulping around us. How badass. Fine, I understand. She let go of me, albeit a bit violently, and forced her to comply. The other girls backed off as well. My wrists smarted, but it didn't look like any healing was necessary. Lord Fitz, I'll let this slide. But you, over there, you better not show your face around the girls' dorm at this hour ever again. Next time I see you, I won't show you any mercy. The gorilla spat those words before ducking back into the window she leapt out of. The other girls also sneered at me as they disappeared. In an instant, they were all gone. Phew, that girl. If only she listened. Fitz breathed a sigh as he watched her go. He looked back at me as his head drooped. Sorry, if I hadn't dropped that underwear, this would have never happened. Just why on earth was a boy like him washing underwear in the girls' dorm anyway? Or so I wanted to ask, but he was the princess's highly trusted and capable bodyguard, so he must have had special permission. He seemed like an honest man and a harmless one. He was reliable, young, and his glasses made him seem all the more dashing. Well, I'd call him cute rather than handsome. Crap, my heart was pounding. Even the person in front of me was a guy. To put it nicely, I might be falling in love. To put it crudely, I was ready to lick his feet. You haven't done anything wrong. You helped me, I said. Helped you? They're the ones who would have been injured if you'd seriously resisted. The reason he was so frantic hit me. He must have thought that they would get injured if I unleashed my power, so he'd been acting to ensure their safety, but even so, I felt the compassion in his actions. If this were a shoujo manga, this would be where our love story began. Still, that came out of nowhere. What did she mean? I asked. Yes, well, it's like Miss Goliath said, or sorry, Goliad, yeah, Goliad said, when the sun sets, male students aren't allowed to come near the girls' dorm. Apparently, the gorilla from a moment ago was called Goliad, or Goliad. The name certainly emanated strength, a perfect example of someone's name matching their physique. Really? But that wasn't written in the school rules, I protested. It was decided between the students living here at the dorms. When the sun sets, the boys aren't allowed to use that road and must take a detour to get to theirs. An unwritten rule, huh? It would have been nice if someone had told me about it beforehand, like Zenoba. I didn't know. It's not your fault, he said. Just be careful next time. I will. He didn't need to tell me twice. I probably wouldn't take that path again, not even in the middle of the day. I still couldn't bear having the hostile glares of an entire crowd train on me. At any rate, thanks for helping me, I said. If you hadn't come to rescue me, I don't know what would have happened. Don't worry about it. Or, don't worry about it. I only did what anyone else would do. What anyone else would do? Really? In hindsight, I had a lot of memories of being misunderstood or falsely accused these past few years. It started with the Beast Folk, then Paul, then Orsted. Is my face that untrustworthy? However, Fitz hadn't arbitrarily decided I was guilty. In fact, he stuck up for me, even though I was partially at fault for what happened. He seemed the easygoing sort. He clearly wasn't holding a grudge over the exam. He even given me advice at the library. He had a lot of clout within the school, but he hadn't let it go to his head. Instead, he'd carefully evaluated the situation to figure out how to help me. He might look like a boy, but he was a man of character, an upperclassman in every sense of the word. I made up my mind. As a show of my respect for him, I was going to call him Master Fitz. Besides, Rudius, you could have gotten out of that without hurting anyone, couldn't you? Not at all. I'm truly grateful to you, Master Fitz. When I bowed my head, he bashfully scratched at his cheek. It feels kind of weird to hear you thank me. Oh, oh, why's that? When I asked, he just grinned wide, showing his teeth. That smile caught me off guard. That's a secret. And just like that, my first day of school ended. Well, okay, hold on, let me read, or let me drink real quick. Yeah, interlude. Sophia. Yeah. Part 1. In the morning, I woke to the sound of birds. It was still fairly dark outside when I peered out the window. Ah, uh, I pushed myself upright in an attempt to shake off the drowsiness as it clung to me. Then I slipped out of bed, which was neither luxuriant nor crude, and stretched. From beneath my bed, I pulled out a bucket, filled it through magic, and washed my face. Then I began to warm up for my morning exercises. I sat on my haunches and stretched my feet, then spun my arms in circles to loosen my joints and shoulders muscles, then finally took a deep breath. My body seemed to be in good condition today. It must have been thanks to the good dream I had. Rudy had started in it. He made love to me. I didn't mat. Hold on. I have to get over the fact that I read that. Anyway, I didn't remember why he'd done it, but I did remember how happy it made me. I was disappointed when I woke to discover it was only a dream. I traded my pajamas for clothes that were easy to move about in, a light brown top and pants, made of soft material, not the least bit sexy. Just as I was about to leave, I stopped. Oh, I can't forget this. I donned a giant hat that completely covered my hair and ears and stepped from the room. The room next to mine was a luxurious suite. It contained a canopied bed, tucked within which was the princess with her beautiful golden hair. Her face looked angelic as she slept, and there was no indication she'd wake soon. It was still too early for that. I crept in quietly so I didn't wake her, and went to the room beside hers. Seated there in a chair, looking a bit drowsy, was a young man. He wore an ordinary shirt, but his pants were made of leather, and he had a sword hanging at his side. His hair was white, and a large pair of sunglasses hid his face. He was petite enough to almost resemble a woman, but something about his body was clearly masculine. On the table beside him was a bell. If he rang it, the linked bell in the neighboring room would also ring, a signal for the two waiting nearby. The princess's knight and the princess's attendant could come flying this way. Good morning, Fitz. Hold on. Good morning, Fitz. Morning, Sophie. When I greeted him, Fitz smiled softly and returned the gesture. This Fitz was one of the princess's attendants, and my friend. His attendant duty kept him busy, but when he had time off, he studied voiceless casting with me. He was a very studious person. I suppose you could say I was his master, though, of course, I would never call myself as such. Fitz wouldn't move from his position until the princess awoke. He was very dedicated to his job, after all. You're going to run again today? Yeah, it's important to be consistent with exercise. All right, have fun. I left, slipping into the deathly still hallway, which was currently blanketed in a kind of quiet that was characteristic of the morning hours. I loved this kind of quiet. This place was always bustling and noisy, but during this particular time, it was still. It was silent at night, too, but that felt eerie, like something was lurking out of sight. I moved stealthily down the hall so as to not wake anyone else, creeping down the central staircase to the first floor and slipping right out the front. A few steps into the faint darkness, I turned back. An enormous building with a red roof filled my horizon. Renua University and Magic student dormitory. My morning routine was a jog. It was something I'd been doing ever since Rudy and I were separated. Running was important. I hadn't understood that immediately after Rudy left, but I did now. Being able to continue running when you were at your limit, convinced you couldn't go any further, became the difference between life and death. No matter how good you were at magic or swordplay, in the end, the most important thing was stamina. That aside, I also loved running. There were only two things I could hear during an early morning jog, excuse me. The sound of my feet and the sound of my breathing. Those two things banished my thoughts and cleared my mind. I was at my sharpest when I was running. Huh, huh. One of my goals for the start of each day was to keep running in the magic city of Sharia until I couldn't run anymore. By doing that, I wouldn't just become familiar with the city's layout, but also learn my physical limits. No one had taught me this, but it was something I thought Rudy might do if he were in my position. I ran through the workshop district. It bustled with commerce and with people noisily unloading their goods, but this part of it was quiet. Or it was quiet. Although, when I looked in the direction where I sensed people moving, it seemed the craftsmen had already begun their work. In which case, perhaps they'd actually going to be going. Okay, that's a weird sentence. They'd actually be going to bed right after this. I ran by a corner shop with a strange name and decided to turn down an unfamiliar narrow back alley. The layout of the magic city of Sharia wasn't particularly complex, but it was honeycombed with many small alleys I wasn't familiar with. I intended to memorize all of them. Rudy would no doubt do the same in my place. Ah, so this is where it leads? The alley opened onto a street I knew. It led from an area in the workshop district full of artisans' workshops and dwellings to a part of the commerce district where stores were lined up side by side, separated by the large winding main road. I hadn't realized there was a smaller street connecting them. It was likely a path the artisans used daily. Now that I knew it, I could take a slight shortcut from the school to the commerce district when I went shopping. The accomplishment brought me joy. I continued running. After jogging around the city for a bit, the sky grew light. Watching the sunrise was one of the rewards for rising early. I liked the sunrise. The sight stayed constant no matter what country you were in, which brought comfort. I never tired of seeing it. That said, I must have been gaining some stamina lately because the sun was beginning to rise before I was even close to tiring out. I might need to wake a little earlier tomorrow morning. Still, I returned to the school for now. When I got back to the dorm, the princess had just woken up. Still half asleep, she sat up in bed, sluggishly crawling out of it. Sylphie, morning, she greeted me, stretching her arms wide. Yes, good morning. That was cue for my sleepless friend from the next room to start undressing or start dressing the princess. I'd struggled with the duty at first. Her clothes were fundamentally different from what I was familiar with masses of buttons and lace. But last year, the university instituted uniforms that were well designed but somehow simple to wear, so it was now easy to dress the princess. All I had to do was unbutton her pajamas, slip them off, put on her undergarments, and Sylphie, I don't feel like wearing a brassiere today. How do you say that? Yeah. Occasionally, she would take
Brazier.
self brazier. Okay,
Yeah,
I don't
that's
often read
technically
that word.
what bra is short for.
Oh, brazier. Okay, shows what I know. Sophie, I don't feel like wearing a brazier today. Occasionally, she would make selfish requests, but I didn't complain. As things stood, I was essentially her servant. I listened to what she said and moved according to her wishes. I didn't mind after all. She'd saved me in the aftermath of the displacement incident, when I didn't know up from down. I come to realize that she'd only done it for her own benefit. She took advantage of who and what she could. Still, it was because of her that I'd survived this far, and I wanted to help her out as much as I could, considering how painful it was for her to be exiled from her homeland. I honestly didn't know what she really thought of me. I admired her kind demeanor, but I'd begun to understand her true colors. She had a smile that bewitched all who saw it, but it was mostly insincere. It was a smile intended to reassure the other party and move them in a way beneficial to her. She wore that smile frequently. Perhaps all the smiles I'd seen from her had all been lies. I saw them so often it made me wonder. Still, she saved me. She treated me like an equal and been there for me when I was painfully lonely. As such, she was a friend to me. The second one I'd ever made. You might even say she was my best friend. She wasn't like Rudy, but I was glad to have a friend like her. Seeing her true colors hadn't made me hate her. She was lonely now, too, and struggling in a foreign country, and it was my turn to help her. Sophie, what's wrong? You look more natural when you don't or when you don't smile, princess. Oh my. You're the only person who would ever say that to me, she said with a laugh. Was this one fake too? Of course, even if it was fake, it didn't necessarily mean she was displeased. On another note, the princess's skin was beautiful and smooth. I couldn't hold a candle to her, especially now, all sweaty and covered in flecks of dirt from my jog. All right, I'm finished, princess. Thank you. Now go shower before we eat. I returned to my room as I was told, hauling out the bucket and using magic to fill it with warm water. This country was still cold at this time of year, so it was nice that I could use magic for things like this. Phew, brazier, huh? The princess had such a variety, and they were all really cute. Most were ones she'd brought with her, but some were purchased at discount from the Asura kingdom. They were a place called the Remake Company in the Remake Company in Sharia, which had a vast assortment of underwear, among other things. Meanwhile, my chest was flat even for someone with elf blood, depressingly flat, flat enough that I didn't even need a brazier. I wish they'd get even a little bigger. The elf blood ran thick in my veins. Rudy had introduced me to the concept of genetic throwback, but really, couldn't I have had one well endowed ancestor? My originally green hair meant there was demon blood in my family line, and my mother was half beast folk, so she'd been blessed in the chest department. To be perfectly honest, I wanted them to get a little bigger, even just a little. My unfeminine body hadn't bothered me in the past, but it might make a difference in my future. It'd be devastating to meet someone I liked and be mistaken for a man. I sighed as I wiped my body down and got dressed. I was wearing a brassiere, of course. I didn't think it was necessary, but the princess had ordered me to wear one. I dumped the dirty water in a bucket in the corner of the room. I'd use it to do the laundry later. All right, let's give it our all again today. I slapped my cheeks before stepping out of the room. Classes were boring. Most of them were about things Rudy had already taught me, and sitting in on them made me keenly aware of how much he'd known about magic. Even when I asked him questions about things not in the magic textbook, he readily answered. I was taking a lot of difficult classes on combined magic lately, but they mostly came down to if you combine this magic, this phenomenon occurs, but we're not quite sure why. Apparently, no one had yet cracked the code behind how combined magic worked, but Rudy had known about it. Maybe he'd only had his own theories, but he explained them in a way that I could understand, and most of them made more sense to me than the teachers. Hey, Sylphie, what's the operating principle behind this magic? Oh, that. If you take a stone from a campfire that's turned red hot and put it in a pot, the water heats up too, right? It's the same concept. As I listened in on the boring lecture and recalled Rudy's teachings, the princess would occasionally ask me questions I would answer. She was passionate about her studies, oh, this princess, even if things wouldn't be of much use to her when she returned home. She wasn't just trying to get good grades; she was trying to understand magic. Combined magic was difficult, but combined magic was difficult, but despite the fact that many in our year were failing out of this class, the princess was trying hard. It was endearing seeing her passion. I like people who are optimistic and passionate about their studies. Rudy had been like that, and I liked people who reminded me of him. I was content with my current position, partly because I considered the princess a friend, but also because I didn't mind serving someone. To put it simply, I like doing things for other people more than I like doing things for myself. The princess and my friends seemed frustrated by this at times, telling me to form my own opinions, recommending that I find things that I like doing for my own sake. There was nothing I really wanted to do. My parents had gone missing during a displacement incident, but they'd already been found. Or rather, found out that they died. If I found something I wanted to do, I'd turn my attention to it. Until then, I was content assisting someone like the princess, who had big plans and big ambitions. For now, you might say there was something I sort of wanted to do. No, those weren't the right words. How should I describe it? It was a complicated feeling. Sylphie. What is it, princess? The next class is practical skills. What are you spacing out for? Oh, yes, I understand. The student body of this university was diverse. Many came from the Renault Kingdom, the Duchy of Bostront, and the Duchy of Neris. There was also those like humans like the princess that came to study abroad from faraway countries in the central continent. There were beast folk and elves from the distant Great Forest, and demons from the demon continent. Aside from the humans, many of the students were of mixed blood, so I blended in. The dorm was fairly furnished, and as long as you could pay their enrollment fee, you were assured of your daily necessities. On top of that, you could enter the Magician's Guild once you graduated. It was easy to become a professor of magic at a school in another country if you were a member of the Magician's Guild and held a diploma from the University of Magic. That wasn't all. The more years you spent at the school, the more classes unrelated to magic you could take. Even acquiring a trade was easy, which is why you had people who work as adventurers for a long time, but use the money they made to enroll at the school as soon as they retired. Practical skills class was about actually using the magic that you learned, but focused mainly on mock battles. Taking this class was former adventurers proved particularly interesting. They might not have the best grades in the lecture-based classes, but they demonstrated their true abilities on the battlefield. They were strong, straightforward, and practical. Even those who were approaching middle age conducted themselves cleverly and moved more nimbly than the students younger than them. Some of those younger students had their own original moves and techniques, but that originality was the only interesting thing about their abilities, and it didn't necessarily get them far. The former adventurers were different. Every action they took, even ones that might seem pointless or futile at a glance, led them to victory. uh, you're as strong as ever, Master Fricht. If it's not too much trouble, would you mind giving me some advice? You're about a half step too slow at taking the initiative. You can't pressure your opponent if your attack doesn't reach them. Get closer, he instructed. Ah, I get it. If your opponent thinks you're actually going to hit them, it'll affect their ability to evade, even just slightly, right? I learned a lot from this class, too. Frick was the oldest in our class. He was about 46, I think. Not great with lecture based classes, but in the top tier when it came to mock combat. He used a long staff reinforced with steel, and during mock battles, he chants spells while rapidly moving forward, occasionally pausing incantations to whack his opponent with his staff or kick them. The other students resented him for using melee attacks, even though we were supposed to be practicing magic, and avoided him in a mock battle. Personally, I didn't see the problem. Frick was the only one who took the mock battle seriously. Battles were conducted inside a magic circle, which was large, but still presented a limitation. Given these circumstances, it made more sense to actively engage your opponent and hit them than it did to stop moving and trade magical attacks. When we were younger, Rudy had trained as if each battle were real. I was convinced that that was the right approach. I wanted to follow Frick's example, and so I actively sought him out as an opponent during mock battles. Incidentally, Master Frick's goal was to become a professor at the university. I admire people who knew what they wanted out of life. Once class was finished, I was back to looking after the princess. She and the others were constantly working towards the fulfillment of her own ambitions. And though I didn't fully understand what was going on, I helped where I could. We're going shopping today. Understood. She didn't have anything particularly conniving planned for today, it seemed. We sometimes took a day to relax after a big group discussion, even though such days were few and far between, depending entirely on the princess's whims. Well, calling it a whim wasn't entirely correct. It was something she decided after taking our mental states into account. Traveling to such a far off foreign country had taken its toll on the princess's followers. The princess's attendant had something akin to a nervous breakdown, and I'd been terribly sad when I discovered my parents were both dead. These breaks were meant as a change of pace to ensure we weren't so overwhelmed by sadness that we became useless. Are you going out dressed in that? There's no purpose in wearing fancy clothes when that's exactly what we're going to buy. Normally, the princess and her attendant dressed in the nines. For some reason, they were indifferent about their outfits when they went shopping. Meanwhile, just walking into the princess's favorite shop made me incredibly self conscious about how we looked to those around us. Come on, please hurry. A handful of us accompanied her as we left the university and walked down the main road. It drew the attention of those around when the princess, her knight, and her attendant all moved as a group. The princess was beautiful, the knight was dashing, and the attendant was striking. I followed behind, but could tell that everyone's gazes were glued to the princess. She became infamous in this town, just as she planned. It made me kind of happy to think about how I'd helped that happen. Oh, I suddenly remembered my jogging path that morning. Excuse me. If we're going to the clothing store, I found a good route for us to take. It should be a shortcut. Truly. Well then, please escort us. The princess wore a bright smile. I took notice of it as I guided her down the path I'd just newly discovered that morning. Ah, so there was actually a road here. Not a very convenient one, considering how complex and narrow it is, but it does have its appeal. Considering how old the buildings are, it must be a remnant. Oh, considering how old the buildings are, it must be a remnant of the town from when it was first built, the knight remarked as he looked around. Sharia was an old city. In the modern day, with the university at its center, the city had developed shopping districts that were easy to find. When the city was first built, it wasn't as neatly compartmentalized. Long ago, when the Magician's Guild had a stronghold here, its streets had been intricate and complex. A part of Ranoa Sharia, sat right on the borders with Basharant and Neris, and its labyrinth layout had been designated or designed to deter the possibility of invasion from other countries. And here I was sure you weren't paying attention in class, Luke. No, that's just something I picked up from a girl I went on a date with the other day. Some of them are well informed. The knight was gathering info about the city in a different way than I was. I didn't think much about his methods, but the constant dates with girls were likely part of his own self care. Try not to play around so much you get stabbed in the back. I'm a man of the Notos household. I make sure to put distance between myself and any troublemakers. The man of the Notos household, huh? Come to think of it, the Notos blood also ran through Rudy, right? He was probably a ladies' man, too. I remembered how his attitude towards me changed the moment he discovered I was a girl. He probably keeps skirt chasing even after he got married to someone. His father certainly had. Mr. Paul had only two women, but that was because his wife, Miss Enith, was a follower of the Millis faith, which insisted on monogamy. I wondered how many partners Mr. Paul might have had if Miss Enith hadn't been one of the faithful. 3? No, probably more like 5. The knight was from the same Notos bloodline, and he hated being tied down too, so it was probably a family trait. I wasn't a member of the Millis faith, but if I were going to get married, I wanted my partner to focus on me and only me. Rudy probably wouldn't like that, though, so I'd have to be open minded if we got married. I never wanted him to feel like I was being overbearing. He might even break up with me, though I didn't really think he would. If he did bring another girl home, the best course of action for me, as his wife, would be to acknowledge her and get along with her. If there were more than 3 of us, I'd act as a mediator to keep them all from fighting. Wait, no. Wife? Why was I assuming Ruby and I would get married in the first place? Sylphie, what's wrong? No, it's nothing. Uh, this way. I escaped from my wild delusions when the princess asked me a question. I couldn't believe what a fool I was, dreaming about a future that would never come. A sigh trembled upon my lips. So this is where it leads. It's definitely a shortcut, the attendant said in astonishment as we left the alleyway. Our destination, the clothing store, sat before our very eyes. Indeed, this is quite the achievement, Sylphie. I scratched my cheek when the princess complimented me as we stepped in the clothing store. I returned to my room after dinner. When it was time to sleep, I looked at the underwear spread atop my bed, a matching brassiere and panties. Hmm. Earlier at this store, the princess had gone straight to the underwear section. Then, after an intense discussion with the attendant, they brought me underwear. That's right, me. You need to have some sexier underwear, Sylphie, in order for you to feel confident and take charge when the right time comes, she told me. Perhaps heard me mumbling to myself that morning. Still, what the heck did she mean by when the right time comes? They'd forced me to try the items on in the store. It might sound arrogant to say as much, but I thought the underwear, with its pale green fabric and lace flowers, suited me really well. My body was still so thin I could be mistaken for a boy, so you couldn't quite say I looked sexy in them, but maybe if Rudy saw it, he'd at least think I looked cute. Rudy, huh? Suddenly I remembered what I had been thinking about during class that afternoon, the thing I wanted to do. Perhaps what I wanted was to get along with Rudy. It was thanks to him that my life was like this right now. I wanted to make friends with him and return the favor. No, that wasn't quite right. It wasn't just about that. These feelings surely didn't come purely from gratitude. Most likely yes, I guess I really did. Mm. My face heated up as I reached a conclusion. I dove into bed as if trying to shake it off and hug the blanket close. I curled into a tight ball, resisting the urge to roll around. I knew what it was I wanted to do right now. I finally knew. But then, suddenly, I realized something. When I did, I clenched my jaw tight. What should I do? I closed my eyes after blurting out those words. I didn't sleep very well that night. Chapter 4. Beginning of my school life. A month had passed since my enrollment. Rudius the Quagmire's school life was a monotonous one. First, I woke up in the morning, then, as had become my daily routine, I began my training. According to a manga I read in my previous life, there was a man who did push-ups and squats 100 times, ran 10 kilometers, and sacrificed his hair to attain enough power to become the strongest in the world. Sounds familiar. I didn't want to lose my hair, so I had to work a little harder than him. More specifically, by practicing my wooden sword. Such training had value only because I did it on a daily basis. Apparently, there were others at this university who were also passionate about exercise, because I spotted a girl going for a jog again this morning. I didn't see her face because her hat was pulled over her eyes, but she looked fit, a bit thin. After returning to my room, I did a bit of magic training. I was making a figurine again for the first time in a long while. Zenova kept hounding me and teaching my skills, so this was partially a refresher for me. I hadn't made much progress with this one, though, since Zenova kept interrupting to summon me to breakfast. The dining order in the dormitory's cafeteria was determined by academic year and social position. They were lenient with the time frames. They were busy in the morning, after all. After the meal, I parted ways with Zenova and headed for the library. My research into teleportation had gotten interesting. When the noon bell chimed, Zenova and I would have lunch together. He asked me questions about things he didn't understand in class, and I'd answer to the best of my abilities. Zenova was only taking earth magic classes, but he was still working hard in his way. We ate our meals outside. Alina Lee sometimes came by, but apparently Zenova didn't look like a good man in her eyes, so she would quickly scamper off. I asked her how she was dealing with her situation since she wasn't allowed to bring men into the women's dorm, and she said she went into the city at night to quench her thirst. Impressive stamina. On a separate note, this cafeteria had a lot of food that catered to my palate. It had things like nanaho shiaki, the pseudo karage, as well as something that tasted similar to curry called curry soup. It wasn't amazing, but I liked that it tasted like something from my previous life. They definitely maintained a menu that the previous or the various races here could enjoy. In the afternoons, I took a class on the foundations of healing magic, divine magic, and barrier magic. Divine magic was especially effective against ghost type creatures or beasts with a gaseous form. From a theoretical standpoint, I figured it was likely similar to disturbed magic, using mana in its rawest form to strike your opponent. Granted, just smacking something with pure mana didn't actually do any damage, so there had to be more to it. Perhaps I've been able to understand that sort of stuff I've been exercised in my previous life. As it was, I was just learning the theory behind it and memorizing each incantation. I was taught you needed to change the type of magic you were using to counter your opponent. If you wanted to become a skilled divine magician, it was important for you to be able to analyze your opponent. But surely that required but surely that requirement applied beyond divine magic? On that note, first-rate sword fighters could apparently cut right through ghosts. No need for analysis. I've seen a number of ghost-type beasts while I was operating as an adventurer, but never a sword fighter could cut through them. Barrier magic was, as the name implied, magic where you create a protective wall. These are basically constructed using magic circles, but at the beginner tier, you could also create them through incantation. Magic Shield had the power to isolate flames or cold and reduce their effect. Their magic resistant bricks of the university, as well as the inn's fireplace, were most likely developed from this magic. If there was a shield that could protect against magic, surely there was one for physical attacks as well. When I asked the teacher about it, they told me that the Millis Faith owned the rights to both divine and barrier magic, so the university could only teach the basic levels of both. Apparently, physical shield was an intermediate tier spell and not something I could learn. The teacher could use that magic and even teach it, but it was illegal to do so. If they violated the law and got caught, the Millis Faith would hunt them down and put them on trial. In fact, it used to be that the university wasn't even allowed to teach the basics of those schools of magic. It was only about 2 years ago, after agreeing to certain conditions, that they were given permission. Given those circumstances, I was told that the class was instead going to focus on how to break through barriers. There were two types of barriers: those proofing against magic and those proofing against physical objects. Once a person was Saint tier and above, they could create barriers that combined both aspects. There were also various other uses, such as a barrier to protect oneself and a barrier to lock something inside. My old teacher Roxy had also taught me about barriers, but at the same time, or at the time, I'd been satisfied just with the knowledge that they existed and more or less tuned out the rest of what she said. So I was informative to review it and have someone re-explain them for me. I returned to the library once class was over. There, I spent my time researching teleportation until it became dark outside. I did technically go hunting through the literature, but as a result of teleportation magic being labeled as a forbidden art, there wasn't anything listed in detail. The book that Master Fitz had told me about, an account of the exploration of the teleportation labyrinth, might be the most extensive written information out there. After that, I returned home to the dorm, ate dinner, and then after working on the figurine a little, went to bed. My lifestyle had found a rhythm and I was beginning to feel relaxed, but my little man's appetite, or rather lack thereof, remained unchanged. The healing magic class never touched on any subject related to ED, of course, and there were no books on how to cure such a condition in the library either. There was no sign I'd recover. Then one day, something happened. It was evening, and I was in the library researching teleportation when Master Fitz approached with his white hair and sunglasses. He had a somewhat fashionable cloak over his school assigned uniform, sturdy looking boots, and snug white gloves. I'd run into him several times now, but it felt like he was always wearing the same things. Rudius, mind if I sit beside you? Sit beside me? That makes it seem like we're strangers. Here, please have my seat. I warmed it for you. Sorry for the trouble. Master Fitz grinned widely and sat down. He seemed like someone who was adept at responding to social situations. Once I moved seats and continued my reading, he peeked over to see what I had in my hands. Are you making progress? I'd been a week since we'd last spoken about it. I've been digging through books and about teleportation every day. I now know that there are apparently other incidents in the past that resemble what happened in the Fitola region, I said. Fitz had given me a head start on my research after all, so I decided sharing what I'd found was a way of showing my gratitude. It wasn't something worth hiding anyway. It wasn't on a large scale on as large a scale as a Vitola displacement, but there were cases of people abruptly disappearing one day and then suddenly returning another. In other words, being spirited away. A single person would vanish and then either reappear in another place or reappear at the same place. This phenomenon was quite common. Well, not quite, but it seemed to happen occasionally. I wonder if that's the same thing as a teleportation in the Fitoa region. Hard to say. Hmm? When I happened to look at what was in Master Fitz's hands, I noticed he was holding a book about teleportation. Are you perhaps helping me? He shook his head when I asked. No, I'm also looking into the displacement incident. Ah, so that's it. Why are you going to all that trouble? Did Princess Ariel order you to? Not quite. He put his hands to his chin as if he were considering his response, and the corner of his lips lifted as he chuckled. His laugh was one of self deprecation. To tell the truth, one of my acquaintances went missing during the incident. Oh, uh, I'm not sure what to say. I remember the list of the deceased back at the refugee camp. How many hundreds of names had been listed on it. It had been 5 years since the disaster. The chance of survival for those still missing was basically zero. I was sure Master Fitz's acquaintance and everyone else still missing was probably already deceased. I was one of the lucky ones since my entire family was still alive. Oh, I recently found out they're still alive, actually, Fitz interjected. Huh? Oh, really? Yeah. I've been researching teleportation up until then, thinking if I could figure out the pattern behind where people were teleported, then it would make finding them easier. That's why I looked into it. A pattern behind where people were teleported to, huh? Interesting. I'd never even considered that before. Incredible as ever, Master Fitz. That's an insightful idea. No, it's really not that special. Besides, I wasn't able to search for them in the end anyway, Fitz replied, his head drooping. Based on what I'd heard, the second princess had lost her standing approximately a year after the displacement incident. Of course, there must have been signs that she was headed down that path even before then, and as her bodyguard, Master Fitz must have been really busy during that time. That's not your fault. People had their own duties to fulfill. He couldn't just abandon them to participate in his own research. In fact, he'd actually use his position to access the university's magic and or library and conduct research on the incident. The fact that he knew his acquaintance had been found also meant he'd been gathering information. He had his own life to live and work to do, but even then, he'd done what he could. That was enough, in my opinion. Instead of dwelling on the past, let's think about what to do from here on out. And on that note, would it be possible for you to tell me what you found, Master Fitz? Yeah, sure. I can gather my findings and bring them tomorrow. Just don't expect much. I'm not really good at looking things up, so I can't discover things as quickly as you do. He didn't seem very confident. Fitz had said he was a fourth year, right? He was attending classes, acting as a bodyguard, and according to what I'd heard the other day, also carrying out routine tasks for Princess Ariel. He'd also managed or mentioned being involved in the student council. Even though he had all that going on, he still carried out his search, refusing to escape the matter with the excuse that he was just too busy. That made him incredible in my eyes. I just have more time to spend on it than you do, I assured him. After all, I was spending all my time before noon looking into the matter. I'd actually seen the epicenter of the disaster, and with my knowledge from the previous life, and some ability to predict things. Uh, mm, hey, Rudius, there's something I want to talk to you about. Fitz was suddenly scratching the back of his ear as he looked down towards his lap and mumbled. I tilted my head. Yes, so what is it? I owed him for helping me the other day as well. Whatever it was, I wanted him to feel free to tell me. I'd like you to help me out with your research into the displacement incident. I felt incredibly humbled by his offer. No, in fact, I should be the one assisting you. I'm the one who just began my research recently. I don't even have much information on the topic, but I don't have much time to spend on it. But I don't have much time to spend on it. Even if we partner up, most of the work will fall to you. Does that bother you? Having someone like me who just comes in here occasionally butting into your research? It might bother me if someone who barely spent any time helping came in just to lambaste my progress, but he didn't seem the type to do that. Besides, it was probably better to have someone with a different perspective weigh in rather than work on it all by myself, right? I wasn't that smart anyway, and Fitz was considered a genius, so he might be able to find something in the data I gathered. It doesn't bother me. I look forward to working together. Yeah, me too. We shook hands, and Fitz gave me a toothy grin. The look on his face, combined with the softness of his hand, made my heart pound. Was I seriously feeling this way towards a guy? No, that was absurd. My emotions were just getting off track. After that, I gathered what I researched for the day and headed home. By the time we left the library, it was already growing dark outside. Master Fitz and I shared small talk as we walked back to the dorms. Between being the prince's bodyguard and doing chores for her, he was kept busy daily, and once every 10 days, he got some free time in the evening. By the way, I saw you at noon. You were amazing. Noon? I tilted my head at the word. What was I even doing then? I was shocked to see that. Oh, sorry. I was shocked to see these Zenobia Chiron following after you like a little puppy. Ha! By the noon, he meant when we were eating our lunch at Insta Cafe Terrace, bathed in the attention of surrounding students. You might not know this, but when he first enrolled, he was a violent troublemaker that just fought with everyone. I laughed bitterly upon hearing the word. Oh, sorry. You might not know this, but when he first enrolled, he was a violent troublemaker that just fought with everyone. I laughed bitterly upon hearing the troublemaker part. I should have guessed as much. It seemed he wasn't being bullied after all, which made sense. Someone who could pull off a person's head with their bare hands wouldn't be bullied so easily. Although he did quiet down eventually after Linnea and Persenna, two ill behaved students, did him in. So Linnea and Persenna were the leaders of the delinquents, apparently. They challenged the new student Zenoba, who was lashing out all the time, and rather easily managed to defeat him 2-on-1. Considering how strong he was, I wasn't going to call that unfair. After that, they started treating Zenoba like their underling. I hadn't really witnessed that myself, though. Linnea and Persenna might try something with you, so be careful, Fitz warned. I think I'll be fine on that front. I'd already acted deferentially towards them. For the moment, I doubted they were planning anything behind my back. I wasn't sure where the delinquents gathered, but I'd almost never seen them in the cafeteria. Um, well, I don't think they would take too kindly to you meeting with me. And why would that be? I asked. Well, when we were still first years, they tried to interfere with Princess Ariel, and I then engaged and defeated both of them. 2-on-1. Yes, that's why they, well, might be resentful towards me. So that was it. Still, based off of what he was saying, Master Fitz was quite strong. He defeated Linnea and Persenna, who had themselves defeated Zenoba. Hey, hold up. That meant I was the strongest since I defeated Master Fitz, right? Ha! Or nah, no way. It was just a bad matchup. I could use disturb magic, so I was better against an opponent who could use voice as casting. My opponent was being caught unawares also worked in my favor. If he had known I was going to use disturb magic when we fought, there was no guarantee I would still would have won. I'm sure you'll be fine though, Fitz said. Well, who knows about that? There isn't a person here who can defeat me one on one. I'd never lost a fight. Not until you, he said, praising me. I should be the one praising him for his attitude. He was someone who had never lost, finally tasting defeat at my hands, yet he didn't even hold a grudge. Wasn't he frustrated that he lost? That magic. Disturbed magic, wasn't it? That was amazing. Teach me how to use it sometime. Yeah, certainly. I'd be happy to. Even if teaching him disturbed magic meant I might not be able to defeat him anymore. The thought of refusing him didn't even cross my mind. Oh, well, anyway, that's what I wanted to tell you. So be careful. There are a lot of eccentric people among the special students. There's Cliff, who's short tempered and apparently even silent, caused a lot of problems when they first enrolled here. There's also a former adventurer among the first years, a strange elf I heard. They say she's been attacking boys. Ah, that last one is an acquaintance of mine, so don't worry. Oh, alright then. Not sure about the first two, but as for the last one, it was definitely a different kind of attack from what Master Fists was thinking of. In any case, I'll be careful on how I conduct myself, make sure not to start fights with anyone. Arrived at a fork in the road. The path was straight ahead, led to the girls' dormitory. It's still light out, but I wasn't going to walk that road ever again. Oh, I have some business with Princess Ariel, so I'll part you with you here. All right, thank you again for today. I look forward to talking again. I don't have any free time tomorrow, but I will stop by the library, Fitz said, before walking out towards the girls' dormitory. He had free entry into that place full of women. Probably the or he had free entry into that place full of or palace full of women. Probably the only reason why I didn't feel jealous was because I could still remember that muscular terror from the other day. Or perhaps, just maybe, I could use my connection with Master Fitz to infiltrate that palace, and that would be the key to achieving my ultimate objective here at the school. For the moment, I still couldn't see the meaning behind the man god's advice. Hold up, let my water. And that was how Master Fitz and I started working together to advance our investigation. I thought the two of us had gotten close, partly because he was friendlier than I imagined. Either way, we were building a positive friendship, although he was still full of mysteries. By the way, Master Fitz, why do you wear those sunglasses? Sunglasses? Oh, you mean these? He never took them off. Not once, ever. Not at the occasion. Mm, I do have a reason for it, but I can't tell you. Sorry. It's fine. I did want to see what his face looked like without them, but I had no intention of forcing him to show what he was hiding. Anyway, what floor of the dorms do you live on? I asked. I've never seen you at mealtimes. Um, well, technically I'm sleeping over at the girls' dormitory. I am Princess Ariel's bodyguard, after all. And that hasn't caused any problems? It's fine. I have permission, and I wouldn't do anything that would cause Princess Ariel problems. You could keep a slave with you in the dorms if you got the permission to do so. It didn't even have to be a slave. If you were powerful, royal, or noble, then a little bit of financial compensation will work in your favor. There were, after all, some nobles in the boys' dormitory that brought maids with them. However, if either maids or manservants caused any problems, their master would, of course, be responsible. Master Fitz wasn't a manservant and was being treated like a student, but thanks to Princess Ariel's charisma and the Asura noble family's influence, the university was placing their trust in Master Fitz as an individual. Even that girl, Goliath or Big Van Vader or whatever she was called, spoke respectfully when referring to Princess Ariel or Master Fitz, acknowledging their authority. Also, according to what Lena Elise told me, Master Fitz was apparently quite popular with the girls. It was the newbies who squealed over Luke. Once they gained some experience levels, their hearts would tremble when they caught a glimpse of Fitz's soft side profile. Having actually spoken with him, I didn't have the same impression of him, but I could understand where they were coming from. By the way, I noticed you talk to me pretty normally, I said. Hmm? What do you mean? Everyone says you're so quiet. I, am actually pretty shy. And yet I'd gotten the impression he'd been the one starting conversations with me. Well, there were those that were on the same length and those that weren't, I was told, so maybe that was the reason. At any rate, people told me it was common knowledge at the school that Master Fitz was shockingly quiet. He even earned the nickname Silent Fitz or Silent Magician, though that was probably partially because he was a magician who used voiceless magic. Actually, your last name wouldn't happen to be Ryback, would it? I asked. Huh? Ryback? Isn't that the last name of the second North god? No way, not at all. Besides, I don't even have a surname. I'm not a noble or anything. There you go, being all humble. Be honest, you're actually an extremely good cook, aren't you? Uh, I can cook, but what does that have to do with anything? He didn't get my joke, and yet he did chuckle, though I wasn't sure what it was he found funny. That's right. The man of mystery, Fitz, was laughing. It was also a mystery why he was helping me, but still, I wasn't fussed about unraveling that. If Fitz was being a coy with his intentions, whatever they were, there had to be a reason for it. I had no intention being as ungrateful as to pry the secrets of someone who helped me out. I would be lying if I said I wasn't curious, though. Still, I kept the man god's advice in mind. When I followed it, the person I met was Master Fitz. Judging by my experience with the man god up till now, things would wind up the same no matter what actions I took. In other words, by associating with Master Fitz, I'd eventually find out how to cure my illness. There was no need to rush. Well, I gotta get some water again. Chapter 5 An Unreachable Power, Part 1. Zenobia Chiron, the third prince of the Chiron kingdom, a blessed child possessed of supernatural power from the moment he was born, and a pervert, an unmistakable pervert. You could say he was a figurine otaku who took things too far. By the time he realized it, he was gazing at them every day, and when the feeling struck him, he gently caressed them with his hand. When he got excited, he lost control of his monstrous power, but he would never handle his figurines roughly. It might have been his love for them that ensured their safety. Love. Yes, he loved figurines. He was very partial to them. For example, there was a bronze statue of a naked woman in his room, a slender and slightly lustrous figure of a woman who he'd bought before on impulse when he spotted it in the streets. When I first visited Zenoba's room, it was only to spy him also fully naked, his arms wrapped around the statue. My fault for not knocking. Zenoba hurriedly put his clothes back on and bowed to me, apologizing for showing me something so unsightly. There was no need for him to explain what he was doing. His love was abnormal. Snow was still periodically falling in the northern territories, and it was cold if you went outside, so it didn't take a genius to figure out how frigid a statue made of metal must be. He was just risking frostbite for the sake of his desire. No one could fake such dedication. Still, I could actually understand where he was coming from. After all, I'd done similar things in my previous life. That said, I would never forgive him if he tried it with a manga or with God's statue, Roxy figurine. Come to think of it, I didn't see her figurine in his room. I wonder if he had left it behind in Sharon. Or so I thought until the events of that day. I was faced with Zenoba suddenly prostrating himself in front of me. Master, please teach me how to create figurines. It was evening, and I held my hands at the beginning of a new figurine. The past month, I've been continuously telling Zenoba to just wait a little longer. He waited like an obedient dog, but it seemed his patience was reaching its limit. Did you promise me? Why do you still refuse to start instructing me? Zenoba seemed a little angry. I didn't have a reason to turn him away, of course. I had promised him, and I'd been refreshing my skills for that purpose. The reason I hadn't started yet was partly because things hadn't yet settled down, and partly because I hadn't found the opportunity to, since it wasn't related to my goal in coming here. Excuse me. Zenoba, my pupil. Be warned that my training methods are strict. I purposely added some dramatic flair to my speech. Zenoba's face turned serious and he nodded grimly. Naturally, master. I would ask you that you please not underestimate my resolve. Even if I start spitting blood, I still vow to learn the secret techniques of your figurine creation. Good. That's the spirit. That was how I started teaching Zenoba how to make figurines. I used my time in the evenings before I went to sleep, about an hour or two a day. I had an ulterior motive as well. This man's love for figurines was genuine, and he also happened to be a royal, which meant he was rich. Although I had once given up on the idea, his aid might allow me to add color to my figurines and begin mass producing them. This world had the technology to create bronze and Western style statues. If we reappropriate the technology, we would be able to mass produce figurines, even though the quality might take a dip from the originals. Might start with the mass production of the Roxy figure. After that, I'd work on the Redrude figure. I'd write a book glorifying the Spare Tribe for their loyalty, telling the story of the gulf between a hero the whole world recognized and a man who did not. I'd depict the struggles and conflicts he came up against as he worked hard even though people wouldn't accept him. Then I'd slap a figurine on as a bonus item and go with it. It would be a set, a book with a free figurine. If that went successfully, I might put out another book lauding Roxy's achievements. Yes, this could work. It might have been impossible for me to do it alone, but despite his flaws, Zeno was still a member of the royal family. He was loaded with cash, and he had passion too. He was the optimal business partner. It was that saying about not counting your chickens before they hatched, but I was already just doing that. All right, then I shall begin imparting my special techniques upon you. Yes, master. Our figurine creation had just begun. Let's just skip to the conclusion. He couldn't do it. Zeno was incapable of using voiceless earth magic to create figurines. There were two reasons for this. One was that he couldn't wield magic without incantations, and the other was because his total mana capacity was nowhere near enough. To be fair, there were very few people in this world who could use voice as casting. The only ones I met were Orsted, Fitz, and Sylphie. There had been another example at this school. Professor could wield in magic without using incantations, but he died last year. I hadn't realized this since I had been doing it from childhood, but voiceless casting was a high-level technique. In retrospect, neither Eris nor Ghislaine had been able to perform voiceless magic successfully either. It made sense that someone like Zenoba, who had just begun learning magic, couldn't do it. The other problem was his mana capacity. For me, creating figures was an effective way to use up my endlessly increasing pool of mana, but really that meant creating a figurine required an immense amount of magical power. This was where I realized for the first time that I apparently had a considerably larger mana pool than most people. I thought my mana pool was a bit bigger than most, but never thought the difference was that much. As an adventurer, seeing other magicians use up all their magical power, I just think that's because you guys are being too wasteful in the way you're using your mana. To demonstrate the difference in numbers, I used to think of that if a normal adventurer had a max pool of 100, then I probably had about 500 in comparison. In reality, I had much, much more. Anyway, me aside, I never dreamed that Zenova wouldn't be able to, or wouldn't even be able to construct a single part of a figurine. He tried hard. He woke up in the morning, exhausted his mana until he passed out, then woke up and used it again until he passed out. His cheeks hollowed out so much that his face looked like a skull with tears and snot streaming down it. The thing he wanted to do the most was a thing he had no talent for. The fact was clear to see. What I had done to him. I reflected on my actions and apologized. Uh, I'm sorry. Zenova shook his head and entirely responded. Oh, well, I were more skilled. He had the look of a man stricken, or he had the look of a man stricken with grief, the look of a man so defeated he was drowning in his sadness. We couldn't give up here, though. All right, then. Let's try something different, I said. There's another way? Zenoba, who had moments before been struck with grief, suddenly recovered and sat forward. Yes, let's do the best we can and find a way that doesn't use magic, I said, conjuring up a clump of earth, clay specifically. I created this with magic, but you should be able to find it in the natural world as well. I've heard tales of a famous potter who would hold themselves up in the mountains. This world's mountains and forests were plagued with danger. Maybe there were beasts out there made of something akin to clay. What are you going to do with that? Chisel it. Chiseling. This was the most primitive, most reliable, but also most difficult method. You would chisel down the clay to make each part, but this would make figurine creation possible even for someone without mana. The other problem was that he didn't have, or we didn't have chiseling tools. We should be able to find those by searching for magic items on the marketplace. I seen a knife somewhere before that could carve through boulders as if they were butter. Now I understand, Master. With this method, even I should be able to create figurines. Zenobos raised his voice in excitement. His face was full of hope. That hope, however, was easily crushed one short hour later. Zenobos' fingertips were not very dexterous. That stemmed from the power he was born with, his supernatural strength. That's right, his blessing was getting in the way. He could restrain himself enough to not break things, but that was the extent of his control. Doing delicate work, such as chiseling each part with careful precision, was difficult for him. Zenoa worked hard each day, his eyes turning bright red as he did so. His passion was genuine. He was so devoted to creating figurines that he forewent sleep and went or worked himself to the brink of death. None of it went according to plan, and he had to redo his work countless times. Each time that happened, he would cry, scream, and emit other strange noises. Finally, he completed it, a figurine that he created himself, from scratch. It was definitely not the most beautiful work of art. It was amateurish, and those in my previous world would have snorted in laughter or made memes of it, but I knew that this was a representation of his passion, so I absolutely would not laugh. Yet, even without my derision, Zenoba himself knew it was poorly crafted. Master, I can't do it. I I can't make figurines like you. He sobbed as if so stricken with grief that he no longer had the will to stand. He'd grown even more skeletal in the last 2 months, but despite noticing that, there was nothing that I could do for him. And that's what happened. I decided to look for Master Fitz for support. It was a truly wretched for me, as Onoma's master, to disclose his failings and seek advice from a stranger, but I wanted to borrow someone else's wisdom. I felt such pity for my pupil. You're creating figurines? With magic? Fitz was unable to comprehend it. We were sitting with our chairs side by side, and he tilted his head as he listened to my story. Yeah, like this. I used earth magic to quickly produce a simple human figure, as discreetly as possible, of course, since magic was forbidden in the library. The simple figure I instantly created was one that resembled a naked Sarubobo. Oh, what's that? It's amazing. Master Fitz's gaze was transfixed as he closely examined the figurine I created. Then, as if to test whether he could do the same, he channeled mana into his fingertips and conjured a clump of mud whose twisted shape resembled a slime. The fact that he immediately tried to imitate what he'd seen was amazing to me. His magic, however, hadn't taken the shape he'd hoped. In the end, he let out a breathy sigh and gave up. I can't do it, he said. While my technique was creating figurines was something I diligently worked on over a long period of time. I'd be in tears if he could copy it after seeing it only once. Still, it seemed like he'd be able to do it if he practiced. He could use voiceless magic after all. This isn't a technique a normal person can imitate, Master Fitz concluded. True, as an alternate method, I thought it might be possible to try chiseling down a clump of clay, but his fingers aren't dexterous enough to do it, Master Fitz concluded. He hummed and put his hands on his chin as he thought. He had a habit of doing that when he was mulling over something. Sunglasses made him look exceptionally dashing in that pose. On a similar note, whenever he was embarrassed or troubled by something, he'd scratch the back of his ear. Such behavior was fitting for his age and just endeared me to him even more. Granted, I'd heard elves had long lives, so they weren't necessarily the age that they appeared. Mm, oh, yeah. I'm not sure if I'll be any help, but there was someone with a similar case to Zenoba's in Asura's capital. Someone with a similar case, you say? Yeah, they had something they wanted to do themselves, but they didn't have the necessary skills or abilities, Master Fitz elaborated. So what did they do? When I asked, he hesitated to respond, scratching in the back of his ears. Uh, well, they made a slave do it. Aha. According to Master Fitz's story, this person was in the capital, had the necessary knowledge but not the abilities. So they purchased a slave and had someone teach them how to do it, and then had that slave create what they wanted.
Sorry, it's just the
Based on what
attention
you
that he's
said,
suddenly giving to
Zenoba
Fitz.
likes the figurines you make, and he'd like more of them.
Oh.
So he said he wanted to make
Oh.
them himself, right? Fitz
Sorry,
clarified.
it's just the attention that he was suddenly giving to Fitz. I had a thought and I could not share it. It was gay. God damn
I mean,
it.
basically, he's having gay thoughts, if not bi
he's
thoughts.
having look. Sometimes
It's
you
okay.
can't escape the gay panic,
That's understandable.
and it's okay. And maybe you shouldn't. It's okay to be
mean,
gay.
Yeah,
It's
that's
okay to
fine.
be.
And
gay.
sometimes it isn't panic. Sometimes it's just joy.
It's ecstasy. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just singing. So maybe you just really like musicals. You don't know.
You didn't see me, but I put my
No.
arms out in the air very dramatically, as if it would like the words appeared above my hands. Very cool.
All right, sorry.
This is
Go
a
ahead and
Mulan
continue.
situation.
Yeah.
Where Shang's like watching Ping walk by, and he's like, "Oh fuck."
Fuck. I think I'm gay. And it's like,
Yeah, he's
nope.
just biting his.
No, I'm gonna fuck him right in the pussy. And it's like, I actually have one of those in the front.
Whoa!
Looks like
He's
a
got
guy has the right stuff downstairs. Yes.
Whoa. Look, Abu, I never met him. Sorry.
Oh, God.
I worked with a girl with two pussies.
No, it's okay. Gay or
I'm sorry, I couldn't even
European.
get it out.
Also true. Also true. All right.
Okay,
Oh.
my bad. Based on why Aladdin of all people? I'm sorry, I have to catch my breath. I didn't think that. Okay, hold on.
It's because he spends all his time polishing his lamp.
Oh my god. Of course.
Hey.
How could I be so foolish? Fuck, where was oh yeah. It's really hard ping-ponging back between Zenoba and Fitz. Let me tell you. Based on what you said,
I just thought it
Zenoba
was
likes
hard ping ponging, or at least that's what the girls told me.
I mean, well, multiple girls will
Ping pong show.
Oh,
You
Oh.
just realized what it was I was referencing.
I think I did. I
We get, ladies and gentlemen, is part of our
We got
journey.
him.
We need to raise money. We got to take Shem to his first ping pong show.
Oh,
No,
that'd be an interesting. That's
That
part of a
would-
charity.
that is a
incentive.
charity event. Yeah. What's it?
Yeah,
what's
Can
the-
I go to the ping pong show?
Would it also be your first?
Yes.
That's also a charity incentive.
Ladies
Nice.
and gentlemen, welcome to Fat Dog Make a Wish, where it's just all horny all the time.
Well. Oh. He's right.
Oh.
He's absolutely right.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Can I check your... All right, time to check your tonsils. Let's see. Go. And open up big and wide. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I thought you were gonna say ah. Be quiet. Shut up. I thought you said
Can't
to say
stand it.
ah. Oh.
Literally, when you do that, you did the and all I'm thinking about is sabotage.
Oh, I can't stand it. I know you plan it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one.
Sabotage.
Yeah. I like that level on Guitar Hero. It's good.
I was actually, funny enough, I was thinking J.J. Abrams' Star Trek.
Jabrams.
And
Jar Jar
J.J. Abrams fucking loves the Beastie Boys.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say J.J. Abrams loves J.J. Abrams. I'm like, yeah, that's.
I mean, he
cool.
I
does, but
mean,
but
he
it was
does.
Jar Jar Abrams loves Jar Jar.
intergalactic, planetary,
Planetary,
intergalactic.
intergalactic.
Dude, for a
I mean, that's
while, I thought they were saying intergalactic planet Yavin. I was like,
Oh,
why are we talking Star Wars? But I also
that-
at the same
that
time I
could've
was
been
like,
that.
why not? Why not?
I mean, they mentioned Mr. Spock in the song, so
Yeah, like a pinch from the neck of Mr. Spock.
yeah.
The
Beastie Boys knows to let the beat
beat
drop. Yeah, that's good. I like that song. Master Fitz. I don't know. Part of my brain also kind of wants to read that as like Ritz, like the crackers.
Putting on the Fitz.
Yeah, put on the Fitz. Yeah,
Putting on the Fitz.
yeah. That's the. Yeah.
Now I want to make an AMV of that.
Put it on the Fitz.
Putting on the Fitz.
Yeah.
Trying hard to look like Gary Cooper. Super duper. I don't we'd have to find something else to go with that. We can't just be like Gary Cooper. We'd have to find something that would be like that would kind of rhyme up with super duper or something like that.
Brain is blanking.
Super Troopers.
Yeah. Be good. I like that song too.
You like Super Troopers? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, continuing on. Sorry.
Okay. I have to like pull my lungs up. Based on what you said, Zenoba likes the figurines you make, and he'd like more of them. So he said he wants to make them himself, right? Fitz clarified. Is that what I said? That's how it sounded to me. Really? Was that the case? Well, while the normal figurine enthusiast might remodel or paint a figurine, they wouldn't even think about trying to make one from scratch. Most I'd done in my previous life was enjoy a little bit of nude remodeling. I'm sure that Zenoba would like you to become his personal figurine creator, but he knows that's impossible, so that's probably why he's asking for this instead. I don't actually think that's impossible, though, I added. I could live in the Chiron Royal Palace employed by Zenoba, making figurines every day. That wouldn't be a bad way to live my life. Working in a royal palace would give me a reliable income, too. Now that I thought about it, how much was Master Fitz receiving from Princess Ariel? I felt like it'd be rude to ask. Well, I'll try suggesting that option to Zenoba. Thank you for your advice. Yeah, no problem. I bowed my head, and Master Fitz gave me a toothy grin. Why did I feel so shaken when I saw that smile? It was a mystery. Mystery of the already mysterious man known as Fitz. Buy a slave, teach him the technique, and have him create a figurine. When I mentioned that plan to Sonoba, he immediately jumped on board and began joyfully planning a slave purchase. That's a sentence. Apparently, though he did want to make figurines himself, he was entirely okay with taking this route if that proved impossible. Much as it surprised me, Fitz's proposal of having a slave do it instead was a widely accepted method in this world. Still, since we were in master-pupil relationship, Zenoba said he felt it a bit rude to request I teach a slave instead of him. This was the man, after all, who swore from the beginning that he'd learn how to do it himself, even if he vomited blood. That was why he'd never proposed this method himself. Yet I felt relieved when felt relieved when I suggested it. And so we decided to go to the slave market during break next month. I was thanking Master Fitz for his help once again. I was really grateful to have someone I could seek advice from when I needed it. That's nice. I hope you find a good match. The conversation seemed to be over, but Master Fitz seemed a bit restless. Oh, yeah, I'm also free during break next month, he said. Oh, really? Yeah, so, since I have nothing to do, I was thinking about going to town, but I don't really have anywhere in particular I want to go or many friends, so I'd be all alone. He was desperately hinting at something with his words. Is it really okay for a bodyguard like him to go into town? Didn't he need to be by the prince's side in case something happened? Well, none of my business. Luke would probably find a way to make it work. Would you like to come with us during next month's break? I asked. You don't mind? I won't be in the way? Not at all. And as a way of thanking you for your advice, I'll treat you a meal. Really? Then I'd happily tip you up on that offer, Master Fitz said, giving me a toothy smile as he laughed. That was how it became the three of us going to the slave market. Next time, a flower in both hands, a heart-pounding shopping adventure with a smiling elf, and the prince of supernatural strength. Just kidding. Oh, okay, we're in chapter 6. I mean, 1 second, I'll read or get water. Chapter 6, An Unreachable Power. Nice to meet you. I'm Fitz. Master Fitz was a bit nervous meeting Zenoba. Zenoba, on the other hand, marched right up to him. And I am the third prince of the Chiron Kingdom. Zenoba Chiron. He was acting so arrogant that I hit him in the knees, forcing him to stoop. I usually wouldn't police how people conducted themselves with a superior, but Fitz was an upperclassman, and Zenova could stand to lower his head a little at their first meeting, surely. Zenoba, Zenoba, Master Fitz is the one who proposed the solution we're using. Show him the appropriate amount of respect. When I said that, Zenoba bent at the waist. Understood, Master. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. My name is Zenoba Chiron, third prince of the Chiron Kingdom. No, you don't have to be so, formal. You're a member of the royal family, so please don't stand on ceremony. Master Fitz waved his hands frantically as he positioned himself behind me. Zenoa's eyes widened. A great dissonance existed between A, the rumors about Master Fitz, B, Master Fitz's physical appearance, and C, his actual mannerisms and speech. He was called Silent Fitz and feared as a magician who could wield voiceless magic. But when you actually talked to him, he was just like any other person his age, a fine upperclassman who looked out for his juniors. Well, now that the two of you have met, let's get going. With that, the three of us moved out. The slave market was in the commerce district. The buying and selling of slaves was a quiet affair on the Millis continent and the central continent's southern region, but the northern territories were different. Here, most countries had legalized the buying and selling of slaves, and some even endorsed it. The slave trade was an essential part of the economy in the northern region of the central continent, so much that some countries would never survive without it. People became slaves for various reasons. There were those orphaned during wars. There were those who were sold as children by their parents when crop harvest failed and they had other options. There were also those who sold themselves away to save their family. There was even a rumor that a slave ranch existed in the darkest parts of the Thieves Guild. The imaginations were generally prosperous enough that their citizens never had to resort to such means, but further to the east were several desolate villages that periodically sold off their children to slavers. Those slaves were then recruited by the Northern Territories militia or mercenary bands, or bought by the government to serve as cannon fodder during war. Most importantly, the Asura Kingdom had its own connections to the slave trade, buying up the most skilled or most good looking slaves they could find. They were a rich country, even the people at the very bottom of their social ladder never knew hunger. Slaves who made it to the Asura Kingdom were winners. Though you'd already kind of lost everything the moment you became a slave, the slaves from the north tended to be hardy and talented, so many traveled all the way up here to purchase them. As long as there was someone out there selling people, there were buyers to be found. Before setting out, I gathered some information from the Adventurers Guild. Large cities had multiple slave markets, and this particular one had 5. The less savory markets would sell slaves who were sick or even on the brink of death, and though there were bargains to be found there, beginners like us wouldn't know the difference between a good deal and a scam. So instead, we made our way to a market that was both beginner friendly and aimed at clientele with deeper pockets. This is quite unlike the market in my home country. Zenoba nodded in approval, as if he were impressed. At a glance, the slave market looked like any other building. It was plain, comprised of 3 mud and stone buildings. Above the entryway were the words Ryam Group, Slave Market. A brazier crackled near the entrance, and beside it stood a man clad in thick Arctic clothing topped with leather armor. He was thickly bearded, but didn't give off a disreputable vibe, though that might just have been because I've gotten used to seeing such types in my time as an adventurer. So it's not outdoors, huh? Fitz remarked in surprise, sorry. Slave markets were generally indoors affairs in the Northern Territories for a simple reason. Let's go inside. Blasts of hot air enveloped us when we entered. Crackling fires are spread throughout the interior of the building, as were 8 stages where naked slaves are lined up. Obviously not something you could do out in the cold if you cared about the slaves' health at all. The market I'd been advised against visiting was held outside. There's a lot of shops here. Master, where should we go? Zenova asked. I've never done this before. Let's just have a look around first. The 8 different stores were all owned by slave merchants under the jurisdiction of the Ryam Group. They had rows of slaves to purchase, ones that they either bought or gathered from various places. I wondered if they kept going until they sold out all their wares or if they were required to swap out with other sellers at a specific time. The clientele gathered around them were fairly diverse. There were adventurers like me, people in noble attire like Zenova and Master Fitz, townspeople, peasants, students, and merchants, including some merchants shopping for resale opportunities. There were even a few slave owners in the mix, standing around with their newly purchased slaves and merely chatting amongst themselves. The most shabbily dressed characters might have been pickpockets. No, they wouldn't have been able to slip into a garden market like this. Maybe they're slaves themselves, sent by their masters to find additional slaves to purchase. I further secured the coin bag hidden beneath my robes. Zenobo was the one funding the purchase of the slave, but I was the one handling his wallet. We'd be in deep trouble if someone came along and swiped it from him after all. Oh, wow, they really are all naked. Fitz was looking at the shops, his eyes wide with surprise. His face was bright red. I couldn't be sure because of his cloak, but he seemed to be squirming, toes turned inward. They sure are big, so that's how they look. I followed his gaze to a group of lean, muscled slaves, probably warriors. The female warrior in the center was particularly nice. She was big, not just her height, but the bulge of her chest, which was enough to make your mouth water. You might think melons like those would get in the way of combat, but I knew from watching Elaine fight that wasn't the case. Is this your first time coming here, Master Fitz? Huh? Oh, um, yeah. Master Fitz scratched the back of his ear while shyly drawing his cloak tighter around himself, probably trying to hide his erection. Exactly the kind of reaction you'd expect from a virgin. I've been like that once, though of course I had a different reason for not reacting now. So Rudius, you're used to this? It made me feel a little triumphant to think I might have more sexual experience than upperclassmen, but I'd only done it once myself. And my partner ran off after it. Nothing I'm proud of. Still, it was true that I felt calmer now that I experienced it once. A bit too calm as far as my lower half was concerned. I'm sure you'll feel more at ease once you get some experience, I assured him. You sure about that? Hey, wait, that means you have experience. He looked suddenly crestfallen. Ah, you're still so young, I thought. Master, we don't want warriors, do we? We're searching for a race with dexterous hands that can use magic, right? Zenoba jerked his chin at us, as if to say that our conversation was irrelevant to him. He had no interest in women, it seemed, even though he'd technically been married once. Yes, his libido was just entirely absent. A race with dexterous hands? That's gotta be a dwarf, right? I asked. A dwarf that can use earth magic. Though the latter is more important than their race. Oh, sorry. A dwarf that can use earth magic. Though the latter is more important than their race, Fitz replied as we made our way around the shops. Despite the size of the market, there weren't many dwarves among the slaves. Most of the people on sale were clearly warriors, and none had the dexterous hands we were looking for. I think we can make do with a child even if they can't use magic yet, since Rudius can always teach them that later, Fitz said. Why a young one? I asked. It's easiest to learn voiceless magic when they're young. Or when you're young. Oh, really? Is that true? Yeah, it's almost impossible to learn once you're older than 10. Seriously? Although, come to think of it, Sylvia had been able to use the voiceless magic, but Eris hadn't. Perhaps her age had something to do with it after all. So it's connected to age, huh? Yeah, I might be mistaken, but this was a conclusion I'd come to on the basis of my personal experience, my masters, and the words of our professors. Also, if you start using magic by the age of 5, the size of your mana pool will drastically increase. If you want to teach a slave how to make figurines using your method, then the bigger the mana pool they have, the better. I thought the size of a person's mana pool was fixed at birth, I said. That's incorrect. The textbooks may say so, but the truth is that a person's mana pool ceases to grow once they reach the age of 10, Master Fitz explained. I see. That would explain why I had such a vast mana pool, having started using magic when I was about 2 or 3. And since Master Fitz had said he was speaking from personal experience, he probably harbored an impressively large mana pool too. Have you also been using magic since you were pretty young? Yeah, well, a long time ago, my master saved me and I asked him to teach me, which is how I learned. Aha, maybe his master had saved him from monsters in a forest or something. No, if he'd been a child then, it was more likely that he'd been kidnapped. There was a thriving business in trafficking children in this world, and even with the sunglasses on, Master Fitz was good looking. So, your master can use voiceless magic too? Yes, he's amazing. I respect him deeply. That's great. I'd love to meet him, I said. Meeting another teacher of voiceless magic could help me improve my own abilities. Master Fitz gave a bitter laugh. I'm pretty sure that's impossible. Really? I guess I must be a pretty important person. Master Fitz was bodyguard to a princess after all, so his master might be a court magician or something. Maybe he wound up being saved by such a person and become their pupil, and as they grew older, as he grew older, the princess's bodyguard. Voices casting would be a piece of cake for an Assyrian court magician. He's not highly ranked, but he is from the Fatoa region. Ah, someone who got caught up in the displacement incident. So Fitz probably didn't know where he was now. I'm not really sure what to say then. I hope he's still alive. He's still alive. I found him, in fact. Come to think of it, he had said that he'd started looking into teleportation to search for an acquaintance. That was his master, huh? Wait, then why can't I meet him? That's a secret, Fitz grinned toothily. Why was it that my heart seemed to pound when I saw his smile? Sure, I might swoon over fictional Otoko Noko, but I wasn't gay. Maybe this was my body taking drastic measures in its pursuit of recovery. In keeping with Master Fitz's suggestions, we settled on 3 criteria as we searched for a slave. 1, they had to be around 5 years old. Any younger than that, and there was a high probability they wouldn't have a grasp on language. Yeah, that seems fine. 2, they had to be a dwarf for their dexterous hands. Most dwarfs are good with their hands and have an understanding of the fine arts. And 3rd, they had to be a cute little girl. My personal preference. A girl? I don't mind either way, but Master, aren't you losing sight of our goal here? Rudius. It was my last requirement that led to both of them scolding me. Huh? We were all men here. I thought they'd agree with me. I guess they weren't their type. Or they weren't that type. Elena Lisa would probably have agreed with me. Actually, no, she might suggest a cute little boy instead. She recently awoken to a love for Shota after all. That said, we can't expect a 5-year-old to have much education. If all they speak is the Beast God tongue, then we can forget about trying to teach them magic. I speak Beast God. I can educate them. Truly, Master, you know the Beast God language? You never fail to impress. Heh, I guess. I puffed up in pride at his compliment. Might not look it, but I was multilingual after all. I'd even taught a 5-year-old in the past. Speaking of which, I wonder how Sylphie was doing. Lena Lise and Master Fitz were a testament to my fascination with elves, whose slender beauty, both men and women, would appeal to any school fans of fantasy, or any old school fans of fantasy. Sylphie had elf blood in her, and she would be about 15 right now. I bet she'd grown into a green haired beauty, and judging by what Paul said, her magic skills had really advanced too. Her fame should be spreading far and wide, and I'd know her the instant I saw her, I was sure. But I hadn't heard a single whisper about anyone fitting her description. I wonder where she was right now. At any rate, we decided on the requirements. So let's try asking one of the merchants. I headed to the information center. Behind the desk was a macho dude with a slick bald head and a mustache. He seemed puzzled when he saw Master Fitz and I, but then nodded in satisfaction once we spotted Zenova. Excuse me, we're actually looking for. Macho ignored me and instead addressed Zenova. Hey there, welcome. What you looking for? A fighting type that can act as a bodyguard? We have some available right now that can be taught how to wield a sword. We do have some magicians as well, but you'd probably be better off going to the university in that case. Or are you interested in the type that can, you know, nah, you don't even have to say. I can tell by your mug that you don't exactly attract the ladies. We have one curvy girl in her 20s, a former prostitute, so she's pretty skilled. And of course, she doesn't have any diseases. Ah! The man took an iron claw to the face and was lifted into the air. Don't ignore my master. I'll rip out that ridiculous waggling tongue of yours and take your jaw off while I'm at it. Hey now, what are you doing? Two guards horned in to subdue Zeno, but he didn't budge an inch. In fact, all he had to do was fling them off excuse me, all he had to do was fling them off was to shrug, or all he had to do to fling them off was to shrug slightly. Impressive, I thought. This tall, underfed otaku had totally overpowered two brawny guards without even trying. So this was the might of a blessed child, huh? Well, strength did seem to equal power. Oh wait, I shouldn't be spectating. Stop, Zenobia! Knock it off! Down, boy! Yes, sir! At the sound of my voice, Zenobia released the man. Now that he stopped, that gave the security guard pause as well. I flipped around to face him and bowed my head as if as if that were the exact moment I'd been waiting for. I wasn't proud of it, but I perfected the speed of my bow in the past couple years. Speed equaled swiftness. I'm terribly sorry about that. He just got a bit excited. No, it's fine. We'll just try not to go too wild, okay? We'll draw our swords next time. I happily let it slide, and I pretended not to notice the fear in their eyes. The most unexpected thing, however, was Master Fitz's reaction. The moment the guard seized Zenova, he stepped in front of me with his wand raised. His movements were incredibly fast, but unsurprising for a princess's bodyguard. I guess I was the only one acting like a chicken. Well, whatever. On with the conversation. We're looking for a dwarf, about 5 years old, I said, repeating our request to Macho. The man trembled as he ran his eyes over the inventory list in front of him. He flipped page after page as his eyes narrowed. We don't really have many dwarves around here to begin with, especially 5-year-olds. It seemed our requirements were too specific after all. Dwarves mostly lived on the Milis continent to the south of the Great Forest at the base of the Blue Worm Mountains. It doesn't have to be a dwarf. If they're dexterous with their hands, that'll do. Oh, we do have one. Just one. Macho tapped his finger against a spot on the inventory list. A 6-year-old dwarf girl. Her parents were in debt, so her entire family were sold off to slavery. She's not in the best of health, though. Malnourishment, I guess. Well, she'll probably be just fine once you get some food in her. She doesn't speak the human tongue, and since she's only 6, she can't read either. I see. What's the status of her parents? We already sold them both. Come to think of it, I'd heard something in my adventuring days about dwarves who thought they could make it anywhere as long as they had a mountain. That logic worked fine if they left the Millis continent to work in the King Dragon Mountains, but every so often you get misinformed morons who came up north and found themselves unable to do anything productive. This is a perfect example of a worthless father whose entire family had to pay for his stupidity. His stupidity. Well, why don't we just go ahead and meet her then? Macho called out and a merchant showed up. He was dark skinned and heavy set, most likely from the Begaret continent or born to a parent from there. He was also sweaty, wiping himself often with a damp cloth around his shoulders, but the market was hot. So I'd taken off my robe and Sonoma had removed his cloak, and Master Fitz remained fully clothed. In fact, he seemed perfectly comfortable, judging by the look on his face. Well, okay, his face was bright red, but that was an entirely different reason. The merchant introduced himself, extending his hand in Zenova's direction. Greetings. I'm the branch manager of the Domani store, a subsidiary of the Riam Group. My name is Fabrito. Sorry, I have the Riam Group. Sorry.
Potolico.
My name is Fabrito. Zenoba was reaching for the man's face, so I forcibly took his hand into mine and gave it a shake. A pleasure. My name is Rudius the Quagmire. When I offered my name, the man looked dubious for a moment, but his expression quickly shifted into a broad smile. Oh, so you're Quagmire. I've heard of you. They say you took out a straggler last year. I was just lucky. My opponent was also weakened. Fabrito took a brief glance over at Zenoba and Master Fitz. I hear you're looking for a dwarf today.
Luckily, I can still.
You good? Uh, yes. Hold on, sorry. I hear you're looking for a dwarf today. Yes, this man over here will be funding the opening of our new business venture. We're looking for a child to drill with the necessary skills from a young age. It was a haphazard explanation, but it wasn't a lie. I see, I see. I can't really recommend this particular individual to you, but why don't you have a look first? This way, please. We followed Fabrito out back into the slave lounge, slave storage. We called it storage, but it was just lines of steel cages connected pulleys. Each cage was just about a single Tommy mat wide with one or two people crammed inside. Merchants probably washed and oiled them to give them a sheen before putting them on display, but they were filthy right now, and a whiff was enough to make me crinkle my nose. On a closer inspection, I saw weeping children and others with piercing gazes full of murderous intent directed our way. There were a few others like us conversing with other merchants in the storage area. Burrito walked swiftly through the gaps between the steel cages, calling out to someone standing out at the edge of the pathway. Hey, is that one dwarf kid still alive? Yup, she's hanging on. Where? Over here. We went deeper into the storage area. The heaters didn't seem to work all the way back there or back here, so it was a bit chilly. Burrito's subordinate stopped in front of a cage that held a girl with a blank look in her eyes, seated with her knees drawn up to her chest. Well, bring her out. Roger that. Burrito's subordinate nodded and opened the steel cage, dragging the girl out. The child had a collar around her neck and shackles around her feet. Her skeletal body was covered by pathetic rags. Her hair might have been orange once, but it was now a disheveled, filthy mess with strands of gray peppered throughout. Her face was pale and her eyes were hollow as she wrapped her arms around herself, trembling. I realized it was chilly, but that didn't seem to be the only reason for her quivering. It was a painful sight to behold. Stripper! Her shivering didn't seem to bother Fabrito's subordinate, who quickly ripped the rags right off her. Her deathly, thin, undernourished, and underdeveloped body was completely exposed. Master Fitz's face screwed up as he watched. Rius. Even I felt no desire for the equivalent of a child who might appear in the Pulitzer Prize winning photograph. I just wanted to hurry up and buy her so we could get her a meal and a hot bath. However, the girl's eyes did concern me. Those empty eyes. I've seen them somewhere before. As you can see, she's a dwarf, 6 years old. She didn't really have any skills to speak of. Both of her parents were dwarves. Her father was a smith, and her mother crafted jewelry. She should have had dexterous hands, you desire, assuming she's inherited their skill. But the only language she knows is the beast god tongue. We didn't really think we could sell her, so her health isn't in the best condition either. We'll give you a discount on that account. Master Fitz looked troubled as he approached the girl, putting a hand to her cheek. After a few seconds, her complexion improved a bit. He'd probably cast something on her. And she's a virgin, of course, so you needn't worry about any sexually transmitted diseases in the future. We'll detox her just in case you decide to buy her, though I can't really recommend it. Master Fitz looked at me like a child that had found an abandoned puppy and brought it home with them. The girl met our criteria, but those eyes really bothered me. I had to check for myself. Hello there, miss. I knelt down and called out to her in the beast god tongue. First conversation, an interview. My name's Rudius. What's yours? You see, there's something I'd like you to do. Um, She just stared back at me with those blank eyes, not offering a single word in reply. Fabrito's subordinate reached out for the whip resting at his side, but I stopped him with my hand. Master, what is it? Zenobia queried. She lost all hope. She's got the look of someone who doesn't want to live anymore. You've seen someone like that before? Many times. Long ago. Well, Zenobia and Master Fitz looked concerned, but I didn't intend to volunteer any more information about my past life if I could help it. Nothing good would come of it. The emptiness in the girl's gaze brought back memories. I had the same look in mine when I was around 20. I had no schooling, no hope for the future, no job prospects. All I could do was eat, crap, and survive. My eyes had been empty back then, too. In hindsight, it had been too late for me to turn things around, but instead I'd sunk further into despair, become even more of a shut in. My eyes had gotten even more, or even emptier. I'd lost all hope. I wanted to die. Do you not want to live anymore? I asked in Beast God. You feel like everything's hopeless. I understand what that's like. Her gaze slowly settled on me. If it's that bad, should I just end it for you? My tone was lighthearted, but I meant what I said. There had been a time when I genuinely wanted to die, and when I didn't, I kept on living for a long, long time that I come to regret. I couldn't save this girl. I could buy her clothes and I could feed her, I could even offer her kind words, but I knew even better than anyone that that didn't equate to saving her. It wasn't saving a person to force them into something that they didn't want. If that were the case, it was better to end it for her. If, like me, she could die and be reborn into a better life, it might be best for her to call this one quits and try harder in the next one. There are plenty of people out there who, for their own self satisfaction, believed in platitudes like, you can do it if you put your mind to it. This girl was still young. She was just a child after all. Things might get better from here as long as she gave it her all, or at least that was what I wanted to say. I couldn't do it. Then I continuously been told the same thing. Nothing short of death had cured my stupidity. I had no idea whether this girl was the same as me. Ultimately, it came down to whether the person concerned had the will to keep trying. I couldn't make that decision for her. Say something, I said in Beast God. The girl didn't even flinch. She just slowly opened her cracked lips. I don't want to die, she muttered in a small voice. It was a half-hearted response, but it would do. It was okay if she didn't want to live, but at least she didn't want to die, and that was enough for now. We'll buy her. I wrapped the robe I was carrying around her shoulders, and then I used magic to warm her up and enchanted a detoxification spell. Healing magic wouldn't do anything for her stamina, so we just have to get some food in her. Master Fabrito, how much? She was the equivalent of 10 Asura large copper coins. That was her price. We took the child to a wash area at the edge of the slave market to bathe her, then headed to the commerce district to purchase clothes and other necessities. Finally wound up at a ritzy cafe, not somewhere I'd gone myself, but Master Fitz was the one who picked it. He fit right in, while Zeno was completely unfazed, as befitting of royalty. The girl we just purchased was wholly focused on gulping down food, soiling the dress we bought her in the process. I was the only one who felt uncomfortable in such fancy surroundings. Master Fitz seemed to be in good spirits. Glad you like it, he said as he stroked the girl's head. By the way, Rudius, what's her name? What's your name? I asked in Beast God. The girl looked at me, puzzled. Name? Huh? Was I not communicating the words clearly enough? I hadn't used the language for about 3 years now, but I'd done fine in the Great Forest. Maybe those in the Doldia village had indulged me in the same way someone from Japan might indulge an American who showed up in Tokyo and claimed to be fluent in Japanese. What are you called? Child of Bazaar of the Holy Steel, and Lily Tella of the beautiful Snow Ridge. I had no clue what was going on, so I just translated her words verbatim. When I did, Master Fitz simply replied, Oh, okay, nodding to himself with a knowing look on his face. Dwarves don't get an official name until they're 7, he explained. An official name? When they turn 7, they receive a name that's fashioned after something they're good at, something they're attracted to, or something they like. So that was it. Master Fitz was knowledgeable as always. Still, we need something to call her, I said. Her parents are gone. We'll just have to name her ourselves. We're going to decide on your name now. Do you have any preferences? I asked the girl myself, but she merely tilted her head. I was starting to worry about her apparent cluelessness. Was she really going to be able to make figurines? Excuse me. She's a little girl. Let's give her a cute name. Master Fitz's reasoning sounding like something a girl would say. Made me want to do the opposite and give her a tough sounding name, but nah, I couldn't do
Odd
that.
that.
Yeah, I was like, interesting. We had to do this,
Rudy,
right?
Rudius, you fucking idiot.
I know, he's like right there. The door is cracked, but he's
So
not
many
looking through.
heads. She's
Yeah.
dropping so many heads, and it's
Although,
like,
to
are
be
you
granted, I probably
fucking...
wouldn't pick it up either, to be quite honest.
Yeah, me neither, but still,
fair.
context
Yeah.
or hindsight and being a third party, it
Hindsight's always
really
2020,
does.
but still.
It's a motherfucker.
Yeah. Zenova, let us hear your opinion. Zenova glanced my way. Are you sure it's all right for me to decide? You're the one who funded this venture, after all. Then Julius it is, he said with no sign he'd given any consideration at all. Isn't that a boy's name? Yes, it was once the name of my poor little brother, the one I killed when I misjudged my own strength. Oh. I couldn't quite control my face when he said that. I knew that Zenova had killed his little brother and been dubbed the head-ripping prince for it, but I didn't know how to react to the indifference with which he spoke. Master Fitz just looked confused. She'll be staying in my room, won't she? She should bear a name that I feel a connection with. True, Zenoba's room was one fit for royalty and hence very spacious. My room would have worked too, especially since I spoke a language she understood, but it just seemed more natural for her to stay with Zenoba, given that he was the one with all the money. You need a permit to buy slaves and then have those slaves live with you, and such permits were easier for royalty to obtain. Well, that's fine, but at least make it Juliet. She is a girl after all. That's fine with me. Juliet it is then. Juliet. That's a good name. Master Fitz laughed merrily, as if he found something about the name amusing. From today, your name will be Juliet, I relayed to the girl in beast tongue. Juliet. Julie, she said with a clumsy grin. Close enough. Oh. And that was how Juliet, nicknamed Julie, came into Zenoba's care. As Zenoba and I started training her, she began to slowly follow after and support him in various aspects of his otherwise messy life. At night, I tutored her in voiceless magic and the human tongue. Before she went to bed, Zenoba would instruct her by means of rambling lectures on dolls and figurines. He also made her go through dexterity developing exercise with them, probably because he still wanted to be able to make figurines by himself someday. In the meantime, there was still no signs I achieved my true objective anytime soon. All right, we are at 9:15. We are at chapter 7. Should I keep going?
Nah, I think that's a good stopping place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Julie.
Sorry, it took me a second to unmute.
Wildly uncomfortable reading about the slave trade.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it is.
Always.
Yeah, it is. Always.
Wildly uncomfortable reading about that.
Funny enough, this is the
light
episode I
novel.
skipped. This is the episode I
Yeah.
skipped in the end.
Really?
And you're completely fine for that.
Yeah, I like
I dislike
buying a
anything where they're
small
like, "Oh,
child
hey."
and hearing them talk about a small child sexually. No.
Yeah, it's like I don't like this. I don't like this in the slightest. I hate this.
I think
I
I
hate
had
that
not
this
come
is
the
like
thing
a
that made me
continuous
more
trend.
uncomfortable was the idea of like telling her like you could die if you want. I can help you
I
with
had
that.
to,
It's
I
like,
had
oh
to
god.
walk away. I had to walk away for a little while. Did we already put Priscilla and Linnea in their place?
I think they did that earlier, didn't they?
Okay. Well, I don't know.
Uh,
Actually, okay. He
Not
was
that I
still being
recall. We
bullied.
got introduced to them last time.
Okay. Yeah, he's still being bullied by them at this point. So later,
Oh.
we're gonna. Yeah. So later they're gonna have their
Yeah,
match
no, we're not
where,
there yet.
where
Oh,
Rudius
that might be
just
this next chapter.
puts them
Throws
in their effing
hands.
place.
Because
Yeah,
the next chapter is the kidnapping and confinement of Beast Girls. I'm assuming that has something to do
Yep.
with that.
Yeah, that's
basically
probably it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Moon's
next.
gonna have fun with
that's-
that
Moon's
one.
that's
gonna
Moon's,
have fun. Yeah, Moon gets to have a
That's
lot of
okay.
fun with that.
Yeah, he'd be
Yeah.
fine. He can voice girls better. I can't voice women. To be fair, I can't voice women very
I
well.
appreciate
Or-
that, Shim.
or
That is
show
true.
emotion.
Hey,
Or
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how it goes.
What do you
I
mean by that?
try.
Yeah.
I try a little bit. I mean, I should try harder.
Try harder. Try.
He's Nova and me and Moon are the two girls. Like we're gonna bully you because you can't do a girl voice.
I mean, I can try. It's just very hard. My lungs are like where my fucking waist is. So
Gotcha.
Wait,
I have to
you're
kinda
not
pull
far,
them
very
up.
far from your balls though. Then
yeah, I mean, I kind
What
of
the
gotta
frick?
pull them up higher. I gotta pull up my lungs higher if I'm even able to get up there. It's like I could read that one or listen to that one. There was a very interesting video that talked about trying to get that tone and the intonation in. So that might help out a lot when I'm doing that, but that might take a lot of effort. Unless all the
Alright.
girl characters going forward are gonna talk like freaking Dr. Girlfriend. You can try that. Hey Rudius, you wanna have a smoke?
Yeah, no problem, Rudy. Thanks, man. No problem.
Yeah,
You
how you
got
doing?
it.
You win the
How
win
you
yet
doing,
again.
Rudius?
Oh.
everyone's
Oh,
just
man.
rude. Everyone's talking.
Unless it's like
then
a
Rudy-
kind of elegant woman, I can try and do something like that, but that's also still kind of
Okay,
hard because that's still my
so-
voice. So.
I feel like there's also the
Why?
Rudius
so
where he's like,
brutal.
why do you all talk like that? He just talks
No, for real.
normal, and everyone else has
Yeah.
that voice.
Yeah.
There we are. Okay.
But yes, that was the stream.
We're gonna raid.
Thanks.
Raid Porcelain Maid. Raid
Yeah.
Joel. It's a little
Joel?
Joel raid. Yeah,
Joel?
The
I
Joel?
like Joel.
The Joel.
I like Joel.
The maid?
Alright.
We were just
The
talking
maid.
about. Well, wait, hold on. Not quite. We haven't talked.
All
about
right,
this, never
everybody.
mind.
Nice
Thank
topic,
you
Jules.
so much for coming by and hanging out with us for this episode of Mushoku Tensei light novel
Yeah, thank you
readings.
for coming.
Yeah.
Woo!
Thank you
Yeah.
for dealing with me reading wildly uncomfortable topics.
Pervy Tensei.
How do you
Yeah.
think I had
hate
the
this
feeling when I
sometimes
read
when it
with
reaches in a well, I don't know. I'm sorry. I hate how like normalized that kind of stuff is in some of these kind of light novels. It's like why
Yeah.
My-
Well, it's
like,
because
fantasy.
no, here's the thing. You got to
Yeah.
understand. You got to understand. Back about 200 years ago, this was still normal.
I know, but
Yeah.
it's just kind of like
Yeah,
Honestly,
it's not okay.
Shem, I would have
gross.
probably preferred to
hate it.
trade places with you with what I read.
All
I
right.
would have
Yeah.
preferred to have read this over what
It's
I read.
okay.
Well, gang, that's it for
Oh,
us. Let's go
sweet.
ahead and give a dog pile raid to our buddy
Okay,
Joel.
I'm going to Joel.
We're going to
Off we
Joel.
go to
Here we
Joel.
go. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ah!
Actually, am I subscribed to Joel? Let me go check.
I
Joel.
know that Fat Dog is not technically subscribed, but we did.
What
do.
is Joel's full name for their channel? or for his
Porcelain
channel?
Maid.
Porcelain Maid?
Porcelain.
All one word. Porcelain
Okay.
and maid are capped, but they're both one word.
Porcelain Maid. There we go. Live.
As if they're made of porcelain.
Oh no.
Hi, Joel.
Oh, no. No, too many rings.